All right, I think we're good to go.
Awesome.
All right, so today, welcome to Fanimation, our first interview. We've got
It's an
Mr.
honor.
Hayden
Thank you.
Trumble here of
Hi.
Batman Broken Promise fame.
Hi.
An amazing Batman animation. Just covered it on the channel just a few days ago, and he's very graciously agreed to come on. So very, very happy to have you here. Thank you very much.
Thanks so
Um,
much. Thanks for asking.
yeah, sorry. Let's get into it then, because the thing I want to do with these interviews is, and I've spoke to you about this just before we came on, but just for the audience's sake, the one thing I want to do with these interviews is just give faces to names and let people know who the fan creators really are, because I feel like a lot of them are mysterious. They're kind of just floating around. Nobody knows who they are, but they're putting out this amazing content. So I just thought let's go for it. I'll ask people, and lo and behold, people respond. So here we go. Um,
It's actually not that difficult, is
yeah,
it,
not as
to,
difficult
to,
as I
to
thought it was
reach
going to be.
people?
Yeah.
It's funny, isn't it?
Um, but so I want to like build a picture of you as a creator and as an artist. So I want to go back to the early days. I want to go back all the way back.
Okay. Oh my God, it's gonna be rough.
Yeah,
Okay, let's do
we're
it.
going all the way back. So
Yeah.
I want to know. My first question for you is: when did you first realize that you were a geek? Because I feel like this is the question. This is you didn't become an artist. Like you became a geek before you became an artist, is my opinion. Like
That might actually be not true in my case.
really?
I was
Okay, all
drawing
right,
since I was
interesting.
two. There was we were going through my grandmother on my father's side's old possessions once,
Hmm.
and we found a sketch that said Steve, age 2, and it
Oh,
was one of the bad giants from the animated BFG,
oh
which
yeah,
my brother and I loved, and they were so scary. Those guys, I think it was like Blood Bottler or Meat Dripper or something, and it was like a pretty good picture for a 2 year old.
yeah.
But like, I can't have been a geek when I was two, could I? I mean, I guess I was watching the BFG, but like, so
I
maybe you're
mean,
right.
geeking
It
out on
is funny.
BFG is somewhat geeky, I would imagine.
I
But
think
I
you're
know what you
right though.
mean.
I think you're right though in that I definitely was a geek before I realized I was a geek. If that makes sense.
Yes. No, I think we all are. Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
quite right. Yeah, yeah. Because okay, maybe this is a better question.
Okay.
When did you realize you were a geek?
Probably because the thing is, when you're a kid, geeky stuff is cool because other kids don't bully you for it. Because when I was a kid, I was the kid in class who could draw the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and
Mm.
so other kids liked me because I could draw them a Teenage Mutant Ninja
Oh
Turtle, and I would
yeah.
get like commissions and requests from other 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, and they're like, oh, he's a kid who can draw a dinosaur. They ask him for a dinosaur. You know what I mean? And then it's like probably when the time that I realized I was a geek was when I realized I liked the Phantom Menace and the world didn't.
Oh, controversial Star Wars take,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
exactly. Well, not anymore. Isn't it funny that actually you take a look at like fandom today to do with Star Wars, you tell them Hayden Christensen's coming back to be Darth Vader, everyone puts up the bunting in the streets. And it's like I remember when everyone hated everything to do with those films. But it meant that I remember leaving the cinema and just everyone talking about how bad it was around me, grown-ups, and being like, I thought it was amazing because I was like 11 or something, 9 or it was sometimes between 9 and 10,
Yeah.
11, and it was just oh my god. But and I think I have older sisters as well, so they I'm a twin as well. Me and my
Oh,
brother, we're both artists,
wow.
both geeky twins.
Right.
And when we were young, we would watch Star Wars with my older sisters, who were like 6 and 7 years older than us.
Right.
But then when it came to the prequels, Sarah and Claire started calling us Attack of the Clones because we were twins, and which is a withering, terrible insult. And yeah, I think I realized, oh, I like stuff that other people doesn't like, or other people doesn't think is
Right.
cool. And now I'm kind of on the defensive. I have to be like an apologist as well as being someone who likes something, which is a hard position to be in, you know. So because I think it's just before that film, all my geekiness was seemingly approved by everyone else. If you know what I
Right.
mean. We all love
Yeah.
Star Wars. Star Wars is great.
Yeah.
My older sisters like Star Wars. My dad likes Star Wars. My mum likes Star Wars. And then the Phantom Menace comes out, and my mum's like, "There's too much computer graphics in it," you know, like, you know. And I can see that there's a lot wrong with those films as well. But it's just one of that. I think that was the moment because I just really wanted to like that film. I was just so ready for it, and I just loved the visuals of it and
I will
the
say
amount of
though, Darth
design that's
Maul
gone
was
into it.
just amazing as a kid. Like when I was young
Yeah.
and it first came out and I saw it at the cinema, I was like, oh my god, I want to be Darth Maul. Like I just,
Yeah, exactly.
I want to have
exactly.
horns growing out of my head and do weird backflips and stuff with a double lightsaber. That shit was awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
If you had to say, if you're, you know, just saying the original trilogy and the prequels trilogy, and you had to pick which was the worst film, a lot of people would say The Phantom Menace, and I'm like, yeah, but it's got the pod race and the lightsaber battle with Darth
Mm.
Maul, and those are like essential parts. Those are like
yeah,
5-star scenes, you
they
know, in a
really are.
3-star
The
movie.
fight
Yeah.
with Obi-Wan at the end and all the drama with Qui-Gon getting taken down,
Yeah.
like it's actually really emotional.
Mm.
I really like that part. I will say, obviously, it's a hit and miss film. I will agree to
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Like, there is
yeah.
definitely.
Oh, we're not reviewing it today.
No, we're not.
We're talking about 9-year-old me.
Okay, guys, we're going to scrap this episode. We're doing an analysis of Phantom Menace.
Have a podium in front of me. Like, the comments I made were made in haste. I want to apologize for my family.
Yeah, we'll get you on the. What are they called? Oh, what are they called? Where they hang people. I can't remember what they're called.
The gallows.
Yeah, the gallows.
Yeah,
That's it.
exactly.
The
I gotta
name's
make a
escaping
statement.
me.
I gotta. Yeah, exactly. I'm Proctor, and I'm like, but it's my name. That's what it'll be. Yeah, that's where the Salem witch trials of the millennium
Yeah.
was. It
It's
was
they were.
did you like the Phantom Menace or not?
The Phantom Witch Trials. But
Oh,
so
yeah.
so
So yeah, to answer your question, yeah, I think it was around that time that I
around
realized I was a
11,
geek.
you started to become socially conscious of being geeky.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I could almost split my whole life in every respect in those parts. There's before I could be embarrassed and after I could be embarrassed.
Mm.
It's almost that kind of coming of age. There's a time when you just can't be embarrassed. It's a beautiful time in childhood, and it's
True.
probably the ages of 0 to 9,
Yeah.
where you know.
100%.
Like, hey, I'm a kid, I like dinosaurs, you like dinosaurs too, we all like dinosaurs. And then one day you're like, oh god, people saw that I liked that thing, and suddenly you feel mortified. It's almost like, I think everyone yearns to get back to that time. I think I think this is maybe why the world is so full of unapologetic fandoms nowadays, because it's almost like we've managed to
100%. Yeah,
regress.
definitely.
We've managed to regress in a good way to a time when we were allowed to like things in a childish way,
Yeah,
That's my
it's
thinking.
weird seeing the cultural change as time has gone on because I was probably I realized I was geeky probably a lot sooner than you did, but that was because where I grew up was quite rough. I grew up in like council estates and stuff, so people were not really into that kind of thing. It was like football, fighting, drama, like it wasn't cool to be good in school and all that stuff. You know what I mean?
I thought you said it was only people who like fighting and like drama school. Like,
No, and
there was a bunch of
football and like
actors in a
and video
council
games.
estate.
There was a bit of nerdiness. There was like some people are into Pokemon and stuff, but Pokemon cards got
Sometimes
banned in
there'd
my
be a
school.
knife fight, a soliloquy, some kind of,
No, there's like to put it in perspective, like there was geeky stuff there. So like there was my friends were the geeks in my school, but we knew about it. You know what I mean? Like we knew about it.
exactly.
So like so it was one of them where like I always kind of knew because we were into anime and all that stuff, and we'd be running around pretending to be Super Saiyans and whatever. And or Batman or whatever it was, and people would just be looking at us just like we're mental. and
Yeah.
we were lucky we didn't get beaten up as much as other people. To be
Yeah.
honest,
Yeah.
we did.
Yeah.
We got away with a lot. To be fair.
Well, and
Uh,
you had like a little crash, you had a little community, didn't you? You know,
yeah,
and
there
that, I
was a
think
few of us. There was like three or four of us in the
geeks
school.
find other geeks, don't they? And
Yeah.
they stand together for warmth like penguins. It's what
Yeah,
we do. You know, we
100%. If
find
we
yeah,
didn't do that, we'd all be dead. But like,
exactly.
basically, like basically, but when I got to high school, because I moved around a lot, when I got to high school, I realized um, I've got more embarrassed by it because I moved to Wales from England and was meeting all new people. None of them were into any of this geeky stuff either, so I was really struggling to find people who were into all this kind of stuff. And I felt like I had to hide it. I felt like every time I told
Yeah,
somebody I was
yeah,
into anime or I was into like fantasy books or
yeah.
whatever, people would be like, "Oh, what the fuck?" And like really rinse the piss out
And
of me.
that must have been that if you're 31, that must have been like 15 years before it was even remotely
Yeah,
socially acceptable.
yeah.
And you know, because there this kind of geek renaissance, wasn't there? You know,
Yeah,
but we're
100%.
talking
Which was bittersweet for
dark
me.
ages. You know,
It was
yeah, before
honestly
that.
bittersweet for me. I don't know how you feel about it, but it was bittersweet.
Mm.
Just to finish off what I was saying, like so,
Oh yeah, sorry.
showing
Yeah.
showing like so to go from that where it was really socially unacceptable, but I had some friends who were geeks, so I was okay. And then moving to Wales, and then everyone not being into it and struggling to find friends. It was only when I got to year 9 or 10, which in for
Uh-huh.
Americans or anyone else watching is roughly around age 14, 13 to
Yeah.
14. That's when I met some geeky friends in high school. And then I was just like, I can be proud. I can be out and proud now.
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
can fuck it all up. I've got friends now. I don't need to care about impressing people. It's all good. But so
Yeah.
I felt vindicated. I felt good about it. I felt proud to be a geek. But then about 5, maybe 10 years later, Big Bang Theory comes out.
Oh God,
And
yeah.
and I just want to kill myself. Every
Yeah.
in a video game, usually.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
like they ruined being a geek, like because
Yeah.
it all came out.
Yeah.
All the normies started to love geeky things, like, oh yeah, we can watch
Yeah.
Marvel movies now, and that makes me a geek somehow.
Yeah,
And I'm like,
exactly. Like they'll be
oh
wearing a T-shirt for something. Or you can wear a Green Lantern T-shirt, but you've never read a Green Lantern
yeah,
comic kind
or
of thing.
something
Yeah,
like
exactly.
yeah. There'd be all kinds of things like that, and people start saying things like Bazinga and stuff, and I'm just like, oh my god, no, no, you're ruining everything. So it's been a very
But
bittersweet,
also,
but in a way,
you
it's
look at
nice. It's nice to be able to have casual conversations with random people. If I say I'm into like Marvel or something, some people
yeah.
at least will know what I'm talking about these days,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
which is
exactly.
the
Yeah.
nice change in the culture. But honestly, it's bittersweet because even when you start talking to somebody about it, like if you start talking to someone about Batman, for instance, or whatever, they might know the
Yeah.
Christopher Nolan films or something like that,
Yeah, yeah,
but they
yeah.
won't know the gritty details. They won't have read Year One. They won't have read, the Killing Joke. They wouldn't have,
Yeah, yeah,
these
exactly.
kind of
Yeah.
pinnacle, like, well-known comic books and stuff. And yeah,
Well,
it's a shame.
it's like my girlfriend likes to joke all the time about the fact that her sister's fiance is a huge Batman.
Right.
His sister's fiance is a huge Batman fan, just like me. And so, like,
Yeah.
she and her sister are just like, how did this happen to us? How did we end up with these two people? Because they don't know anything. Or I mean, this was before Batman Broken Promise. Because now my girlfriend knows loads about
Yeah, I
Batman.
bet
She's
she
like,
does.
now she's like, but she used to tease me because she knew it would make me so angry. You know, she would say, "Well, obviously, you know, I'm a huge fan of the world's greatest detective, Sherlock Holmes," and I'd be like, "Ah!"
That's amazing.
Be like, "Fuck you!" You know, it's but I know exactly what you mean. That like, yeah, if you talk to anyone about Batman, they'll probably know a version of Batman, but it's not even like like if you were talking like even like say 20 years ago, and you were talking about Batman, they only know it from the Michael Keaton to Joel Schumacher movies, and there's a lot of things that are very not comic accurate in those. You know, in fact, nearly every Batman that's been made has something not comic accurate in it. You know, and
Yeah.
then even if you're into comics, most comics play fast and loose with it as well. So it's
Mm.
like, in a way, it's almost better to not be too just you got to just let it all in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's no real. I always like to say that there is no on Batman. You know what I mean? He's a broad church. He can be anything.
Yeah,
But
different writers bring different aspects to him, and I do appreciate that. I think that's the beauty of the comic book side of it. Personally, is that when you get a different run with a different writer, and this is true of all comic books, really, not just Batman, but like you get like they bring out they want to focus on different things usually, different
yeah,
writers, and they'll bring out different moral quandaries and stuff like that, different philosophical aspects and stuff like that. And speaking of that, actually, I actually want to talk a little bit about Broken Promise now because um,
okay, yeah.
um, we will go back to your journey. By the way, you're not getting off. You're not getting off scot free
No,
there. By the way,
don't make me go back. Don't make me go back.
but I wanted to bring up because of the flow of conversation with
Oh yeah,
Broken
yeah,
Promise, you did approach the political stuff, which I
yeah.
thought was a very risky thing to do for a fan animation.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, in a way it is a bit risky. Well, it's in a way it's risky doing a Batman animation at all
Mm,
because Batman fans are actually among some of the most zealous,
right.
and divided in a way.
Mm,
So if you think about Batman fans, there's like, you got people who are like, it's Snyder Cut or nothing, and then you've got people who are Batman doesn't kill, and then there are people who are like, yeah, but I love
right.
it when he breaks people's arms, and then you got people who are like, I like it when he's making stupid jokes in the 60s.
Yeah,
So, and
sure.
there's a lot of like, like, there's kind of these weird cliques and they're all kind of against each other. And I think one thing that's interesting, what you said earlier about all the writers bringing something different.
Mm,
Weirdly, the animated series from the 90s, the reason they're so good, it only just occurred to me when you said that, is because a lot of those episodes are actually adaptations of comics.
oh
So
yeah.
they were the only creators
Mm,
who were kind of servicing Batman as
mm,
opposed to trying to do their own thing. And so they just made the perfect version of the Ra's al Ghul,
mm-hmm.
introductory, two-parter, and Clayface, and they would just come and just do it all. They just did it. They just paid homage to everything,
Yeah, they
and
just
they
picked
just
the
did it
best
as best
stories and just
they did it as
hammered them
best
out.
they
Great.
could. They did the best possible version they could of every aspect of the
Mm,
character. And when you say political, I think it is a bit risky to do political stuff. But weirdly, I had a Get Out in this, and we'll go into
go on.
spoilers. Let's assume that everyone
I
watching
would
this.
imagine so, but if you haven't seen
This
Broken
well,
Promise,
it's been
please go
out.
and
It's
watch
been
it
out
now
for
because it's a
almost a year.
fantastic.
Yeah,
I'll leave a link in the
yeah,
description and everything for it. It is also in my other
yeah,
video as well, but you can find
yeah.
it. It's not too difficult.
Okay.
But yeah, go on. Sorry.
Getting into spoilers. Spoilers begin now. My Get Out is that Two Face is in it,
Yeah.
and Two Face is a walking dichotomy. So
Mm.
it means that you could say the film is political, but really it isn't. It shows two sides. It shows polarization. It doesn't really. It's
Yes.
not necessarily. It's not like a because I think if I wanted to make a real risk, I would have made a film that was like overly, trying to make a very liberal point. I'm quite a
Right.
liberal guy. I'm a very liberal guy.
Yeah.
I'm,
Fair
I'm
enough.
not I'm not I'm not a person who believes that like political correctness is ruining things. Like I'm actually quite an inoffensive, guy.
Sure.
And it's so funny because then you'll see people reviewing Broken Promise, and they'll be like, "I love that it doesn't try and go into that woke agenda and all that kind of stuff." And you get these people, and you're like, "Well, I'm glad that I actually made a film that weirdly can cater to anyone because the
Mm.
whole point of the film is that is just talking about where we are now in society, which is polarized. It's just
Yes.
there's this side, there's red, there's blue, and you're not allowed to go anywhere in the middle. There's no communication, there's no compromising, all this kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
in a way, I got to be very political with it, and I think some of the best Batman the Animated Series and then Justice League. If you look at Justice League Unlimited, that is such a political show. If
Mm.
you're out there and you're like a fan of those shows and you don't think that they're written by really like old lefty political writers, watch fucking Hawk and Dove. It's
Right.
fucking incredible. It's got Wonder Woman and Ares, and they're in a kind of Eastern European country like Kosovo or Bosnia, and
Right.
it's just like it's all about war, and you got Hawk and Dove, and one of them is this bleeding heart liberal, and the other one's kind of an old fashioned, but they're friends and
Yeah.
they kind of work it out. And
Right.
and then you've got Lex Luthor, and he's like the face of like business, and you've got Amanda Waller about the
Sure.
face of like corporate, like kind of American overreach in terms of their foreign policy and torture, and
Mm.
and it gets into all this stuff. So I didn't feel threatened at all because I thought, hey, people love those shows, and those shows are incredibly political, and they
Yeah.
don't care about it. They just show both sides. They'll have one character voice one thing, and they'll have another character voice another thing, and you, the audience, gets to kind of make a decision.
Well,
But you still get to
I think
have a
what
nice, you still get to
oh,
have a nice Batman story in the middle of it.
yeah, 100%. And I think what a lot of people a lot of the reason why those things can be so successful is if you do know both sides well enough to write in that way. Like,
Yeah,
I think it feels less shoehorned in because when one thing is
yeah,
bent one way or the other, it becomes very obvious.
mm,
But when there's a bit more ambiguity to it, I think that's where the real gold is.
yeah,
And
mm,
what I liked about what you did with it was that, number one, it was a comment on the polarization of society at the minute, which I think is
yeah,
a really important thing. It's very topical for now, for this current
yeah,
time.
yeah.
And but you did it in a way that it was not so. It wasn't so on the nose exactly, but in a way it kind of was. Like,
Well,
yeah, you could sit.
the thing I
Go
would
on.
liken it to is the film Ex Machina, with
Yeah, yeah, I have seen
Alicia
that.
Vikander as a robot, and you got this. It's better than every other sexy robot film
Mm,
because of one specific thing. Is it's the one sexy robot film which is allowed to talk about why she's sexy. There's literally a
mm,
scene where the main character goes, "Why did you make her a woman? And did you?" And then there's a bit where he gets paranoid and goes, "Did you like study my porn profiles and model her to attract me?" And it's allowed. It gave itself permission to actually talk about it, and as a result, it doesn't feel like this kind of manipulative thing because it actually bakes it into it. And so with Two Face, it's like, yeah, we're talking about these two sides of society that just feel like they can't, that they're not allowed to touch, and they just cause chaos. But because we have Two Face, we are allowed to talk about it. So yeah, we can be on the nose because it's part of the plot.
yeah,
You know.
exactly. I think that's what I was getting at is that it
Mm.
wasn't like on the nose in terms of the writing. It was that the overarching themes, if you're paying attention, will jump out at you, but they were not.
Yeah.
It was show not tell, and I really love
Yeah.
that. That's the mark of a good writer right there. So
Oh,
like,
thanks.
so you did a really really good job on that, and and I said in the video as well, like a lot of people when they do fan animation, it's usually just to show off their animation skills, which is fair enough. I think
Yeah.
everyone's happy with that. Everyone wants to see a well
Oh
done
yeah. I mean, yeah.
animation.
God
But
bless. Like, yeah, like do it, man. Yeah, if you
yeah,
can, show
but
it.
unfortunately, that means that the writing, because these people are usually animators, they're not. The writing usually takes a back seat in that thing. So it's usually just what quick setup can we make to make
Yeah,
this
yeah,
animation
yeah,
happen, and it's usually like a
yeah.
battle sequence or whatever. And
Or
but this one,
it'll be an inherited writing from the version of the thing that they like.
yeah, or something like that. Yeah, they'll
It'll be
just
set
adapt
within
it a
the
bit.
reality of the Zack Snyder universe, or it'll be set within the reality of the Christopher Nolan universe, or
Mm.
Dragon Ball Z or whatever. And they just kind of basically go, "What do I like? Oh, I like it when Batman does this, so I'll
Mm.
make the animation about that." Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's usually obviously all Fanimation is derivative, but some do more with it than others. And I think what makes Broken Promise really special is that it the writing is actually really well done. Like the whole themes, the way it's all put together, to me is probably, when it comes to the writing, is probably one of the strongest Fanimations I've ever seen. The only
That's a great compliment. Thank you.
the only other one that I could even try to compare it to is so obscure and weird. I don't even know. I'm actually going to cover it on the channel, so I don't know if I want to spoil it.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
but that's like in a completely different direction. The reason why I like the writing of that one is for a
Is it a
completely
Batman
different
one, or
reason.
is it a different?
No,
is it a
no,
different
it's
IP?
not actually. It takes place in an alternate timeline of our world, but it's also in the Metal Gear Solid and
What?
Resident Evil and what's the other one? Metal Gear Solid, Resident Evil, and there's another game
Gears of
franchise
War.
I can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah,
And
maybe
it
like
takes
Gears of
place
War or
also
something.
in these universes, but also our universe. And
Yeah,
it's quite political. It is actually quite
nice.
political, to be fair. But it's
Is it all about the military-industrial complex?
no, no, not quite. It's more about like it seems to me. I'm doing a bit of an analysis on it. I'm going to do something a bit different. I'm going to do a bit of an analysis on it. It's actually going to take a few parts to do because there's actually a lot to
Nice.
say. But
Yeah, but you could do one concentrating on one part of the
yeah,
crossover.
this is what
Yeah,
I'm doing.
yeah,
I'm pulling out the meaning of different things, like why things are related in the way that they are, because they seem
yeah.
innocuous, but they're actually quite deep when you dig into it. And I don't know if the creator intended it to be this way. By the way, these are just my
Interesting. Yeah.
interpretations, but some of it has to match up to what he thinks, though. I'm sure, um, but it's going to be interesting. But the reason I like that is very different because it uses a lot of symbology and it
Nice.
uses a lot of current affairs and stuff like that, and it's
Yeah,
very
yeah,
weird and it's almost like a hellscape, hell dream that you're
yeah.
in. It's horrible, it's dark, it's amazing.
Sign me up. This sounds amazing.
I love it. I mean, I'll send you the link for the new review when it comes out,
Oh,
because
yeah,
it's
definitely.
really good. I love this guy's stuff. But anyway,
I do love it when a writer or a creative, like especially a fan creative, like that goes out on a limb a bit, and like
yeah,
really takes a punt. I think that's kind of like what the best artists do, even within like the studio system. When you get people who like, how can I make this about now? What's my version? I'm up to the plate.
mm,
'Cause that's how you should write these things. I think you should be like,
yeah,
the way I thought about it a bit was like, without blowing it out of proportion as like this huge thing. I was just kind of like, okay, I get to do Batman. What's my
mm,
Batman? And that's how you have to think about it.
yeah,
You imagine you've
100%.
got the job.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like you're sitting down. You're like, okay, I'm now in the director's seat. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
like,
exactly.
so okay, so I want to ask you when it came to um. So yeah, sorry. Just to conclude what I was saying before, by the
Oh
way,
yeah, yeah.
fantastic writing. That was the main point I was trying to get through. I ramble as well. I'm also a rambler, so
Oh man,
uh,
you're fine company.
but um, oh crap, what was I going to say? When it came to Batman the animated series, I'm
Mhm.
assuming obviously there's a lot of inspiration taken from that.
Yeah.
What age were you when you first started watching the animated
Okay.
series?
This is a great question because it's kind of been throughout my whole life, and
Mm.
it's almost like it's like one of those movies where people keep meeting after years, like
Mm.
romance. Because I remember when I lived in America when I was 6. My family moved
Wow.
to America for 2 years when I was 6, um, and I must have watched it then
Mm.
because I had toys of Clayface, and he fired a little metal,
Right.
that mace, that metal mace that he kind
Yes, I actually
fires.
think I know the toy
Yeah,
you're talking about. Actually,
yeah,
I
I
think I
had
actually know what
that.
you're talking about. Yeah.
I fucking love that. And obviously loved it, and I knew the opening title sequence, but everything else blurred together. I think the one bit that I remember is a shot from the one where Batman hallucinates because Scarecrow has zapped him, and he gets put away in Arkham, and they think he's crazy.
Oh
And there's
yeah.
a dream sequence where he falls into Scarecrow's mouth.
Yes.
And that
Yeah.
was just stuck in my head for years. Like that was all I remembered was that bit. And like I watched it years later, and I was like, it's not that scary.
Yeah.
Just like, but still, when I was a kid, it was like, yeah, Batman.
Yeah.
And so that was like this thing where I was like, okay, obviously I'm a big fan of that. And then I always like to joke that I was the right age for every version of Batman, so I'm like really lucky because like when I was a kid, the 1966 Batman was on TV doing reruns, and it was
Yeah.
silly and funny. And
Mhm.
then Tim Burton comes in when I'm just turning into a little kid, and it's big and colorful and gothic, and
True.
it's really interesting. And then I was the right age for Batman Forever. Like, I fucking love Batman Forever. I'm unapologetically
That's
love Batman
Freeze,
Forever.
right? That's Freeze and
No,
Poison Ivy.
no, it's Riddler and Two Face.
Oh shit! Yes. Oh, of
It's
course. Yeah.
Riddler and
Yeah.
Two
Sorry.
Face, and Nicole Kidman,
Mm.
who was a huge crush of mine,
Yeah.
as Dr. Chase Meridian, and she was like probably the first like sexy character in a film that I had seen where the sexist writers at the time hadn't made it somehow a bad thing that she was sexy. Like, she was cool and powerful and vampish and a doctor, and like she was kind of like, unapologetically a sexy woman, and
Yeah.
that was very. And so it's like, so I have a huge love for that film, and I could watch it anytime. The opening fanfare by Rosenthal, the guy who wrote the score, is one of my favorite Batman scores, because it's like, it has that da 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 da
Oh.
da 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 da
Yeah.
da
Yeah.
da, and then just as the bat symbol comes into screen and the title comes up, it's like bum bum, and then the drums go bum ba da bum ba da bum, and then you hear this sound, which my girlfriend, who's a musician, has since told me was a French horn, but it sounds like a crazy elephant goes like woo 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 like a siren, and that's like one of my favorite pieces of music that I've ever like listened to. I absolutely love that. So and then I think then you did get onto Mr. Freeze, but that was when I started to get a bit wise, and I was like, actually, this is a bit shit. And they're obviously just trying to make toys. I was growing up. I was a kid who was like able to be a bit like over things, and I was like, actually, it's not that good. And then I go to film school. So we're kind of telling my autobiographical story now. I went to film school in college, in university, and Christopher Nolan starts making Batman for grown-ups, and suddenly I'm like, oh, this is the real. This is perfect. This is exactly. It's like, it's all handheld cameras, like Law and Order, and everything's fucking like, yeah, it's all real world. It's gonna be great. And then The Dark Knight comes, and it's like everyone's favorite film for at least 5 years. Even when The Dark Knight Rises comes out, The Dark Knight is still everyone's favorite film.
Yeah, 100%. Definitely.
Like The Dark Knight is such a good film. It managed to maintain its reign over its own sequel.
Yeah, 100%. I don't think anyone would ever challenge that.
And then I took a break, I think, for the whole Zack Snyder run. I watched them all, but they were weird, those ones. I really liked Ben Affleck as Batman.
Oh, I never actually saw them, I haven't seen Batman v Superman. I haven't seen any of the Zack Snyder
You're
ones.
the second person I've talked to in 2 days who has said that to me, who's like a Batman fan and hasn't watched Batman v Superman.
Yeah,
Probably
I purposefully chose not to.
It's one of those weird films where I like everything in it except the film. Does that make any sense?
So, like, the aesthetic or whatever.
Oh, no. Every ingredient is right.
Right.
Like, all the cast are great. The visuals are great. The music is great. A lot of the shots, the direction is great. I just don't. The film just makes me sad. It's such a bleak, sad film, And the people who love it really love it, and more power.
I didn't know anybody loved these films. To be honest.
Oh, there are so many. Yeah,
really.
There are people who.
Wow.
There are so many people, and But the thing is, I remember when we talk about episode 1 and stuff. I remember when Batfleck was cast, and Gal Gadot was cast, and and everyone was like, "This is the worst casting ever." And then they are the people who save that film. Like, Ben Affleck is so good as Batman, and Gal Gadot slays it as well. Like, she shows up in like the last, like, as Wonder Woman. She finally shows up like in the last 10 minutes, and she's like that, and it's like the reveal of her there, and it's like Hans Zimmer's score goes, and everyone goes like, "Woo!" And it's like suddenly the film is fun, but it took like 2.5 hours to get to this fun scene, and we're like, it's too late. It's too late.
Right.
But I don't want to piss people off. I'm sure there's people watching this right now who are like, "Fuck this guy. I love Batman vs Superman." It's like, I don't hate it. Film wasn't for me. I really liked the Snyder cut of the Justice League. I thought it was very good. It was very like Watchmen. I can't believe that any studio actually let them make a 4-hour script film. Like the executives must have known the script was that long.
Yeah, it was a bit of a monster, to be fair. Yeah,
exactly. Like, it's like I'm actually stunned that it wasn't like a mini series to begin with.
To be fair, a good hour of that runtime is slow motion, though. Like, every character gets like a 5-minute slow motion scene where they're walking towards the camera looking cool, and it goes on forever. They don't. It's not like
the
just a
entire
few seconds. It goes on for ages. I was
yeah.
just like, what
It's
the
like
fuck?
it's like the entire film is set in the Grey Havens from Lord of the Rings. You know, like it's just slow motion for the whole
Yeah,
scene.
it might as well have been.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That was the only reason people didn't like the multiple endings of the Return of the King. Was it's like it would have been fine if it wasn't all in slow motion. But yeah, no. So and then Matt Reeves is the Batman. The trailer dropped during lockdown, and that
Mm.
was one of the things that galvanized me to start like drawing Batman and animating Batman, and then that kind of became Broken Promise.
Okay,
And now I've seen the film, and I really like it. You know,
you mean
it's
the
I
new
think
one with what's his
yeah,
face?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I think it's great.
I quite
Yeah,
liked it. I quite it to me.
yeah, I like it
It
too.
went back to the kind of detective roots a bit more, and I actually
Yeah.
quite liked Robert
Sherlock
Pattinson as
Holmes took
Batman.
it off.
I was actually kind of digging him as
Yeah, he's
Batman.
great.
I wasn't sure if I
Yeah.
was going to like it or not, but I came out quite pleasantly surprised. But because I'm quite
Oh
critical,
yeah,
like
yeah,
when it comes to reviewing fan made stuff, I've got a very
yeah.
different frame of reference for it because I'm
You
much
more
more
forgiving, do you
I'm
think?
more forgiving with fan made stuff because it's coming from a place of passion. These people aren't professionals, and if somebody does
Yeah,
something
yeah,
really
yeah, yeah.
good, then that deserves more praise, in my opinion. But like, but I'm definitely a little. I'm definitely not as nitpicky or anything like that. Anyway, but when it comes to proper media, oh, like the gloves come off. So so yeah, I'm not. But I was
Yeah,
pleasantly surprised by that by the new Batman.
yeah.
But I wanted to
Oh,
ask you. Oh,
yeah.
go on. Sorry, go on.
No, no. I just realized realized I went off topic. Let me get
Mm.
back to this. You talking about the animated series.
Yes.
So we're going to go back. So that was just my overview of all the Batman media outside
Yeah.
the animated series. Okay. So now rewind back to my early 20s. So just left university,
Right.
probably just about to leave university, and I have kind of a bit. I haven't quite realized I suffer from depression and need to get diagnosed and all this kind of stuff that happens in my late 20s,
Right.
mid to late 20s, and I'm getting a little bit of insomnia. And on a whim, I see a DVD in HMV of Batman the Animated Series, a collection of Batman the Animated Series. And I say to myself, I used to fucking love that show. I suddenly remember Scarecrow eating Batman. I'm like, I
Yeah.
loved that show. I'm gonna buy it. And I buy it. And I end up buying all of them. And I
Nice.
would watch it. Like I would watch 3 episodes every night before bed, and it puts me to sleep in a perfect way. Because one thing people don't realize about that show is I mean, obviously everyone talks about how the backgrounds are painted on black paper. It was one of the first ever shows to do that.
Right.
So because Gotham is always at night, they would just paint
Yeah.
white windows onto a black piece of paper.
Yeah. No, it
But
makes
it
sense.
means
Cuts a lot of time down.
it
Yeah.
means that the show is very visually dark.
Yeah. Mm.
And then the music by Shirley Walker is so good.
Oh,
And
amazing.
it's got this it's basically it's a warm glass of milk.
Mm.
It's wonderful. And I'm not saying it's boring. I'm saying it's the perfect thing. It's just 3 episodes, 20 minutes each, and then you go to sleep. And that was like my routine for a few years, I think. You know, I was working from home a lot, and I would just put it in before bed, and I'd watched every episode like over and over again. You know, and again going back to Kevin Conroy, that voice, it's basically a bedtime voice. It's a
Yeah.
bedtime story voice because he has that reassuring, compassionate, vulnerable side to Batman, which a lot of
100%.
other Batmen don't have.
Mm.
You know, it was something that was missing from a few Batmen. You know, that feeling of
Yes.
actually like, no, he's here to protect you. You know,
Yeah.
and
That is
and if
something.
he says something, it's probably because it's the right thing. You know,
Yeah.
like if Batman says something, it probably means he has your best interests at heart.
I think that's the thing that especially more recent incarnations of Batman really do miss. Like, because the whole thing with Batman in the animated series that you get is that he's torn because he is very compassionate, like, and he wants the best for the city, he wants the best for the people and all that stuff. He can't even bring himself to like kill people like the Joker who are like mass murderers and stuff like that.
No,
because
yeah.
because of his moral quandary and him having a certain level of compassion and stuff.
Yeah.
And it leads him into various different situations. Like there's obviously that really famous scene. I think it's from The Phantom Pain where he's like, I didn't know I could be happy and all that stuff.
Oh yes, yeah, no, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
where
And yeah.
again, it shows that vulnerable side where he's fallen in love with somebody, and
Yeah.
but it's like it could be taken away from him, or his whole life as Batman is kind of
Yeah,
disrupting it.
or there's that scene in the Justice League where it's like a funny episode where all the Justice League get turned into kids. It's like a funny
Oh,
episode. It's a really sweet episode, and then at the end, he's like, "I can't believe like Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman are there," and like Wonder Woman says something like, what was it like being a kid again?" And he was like, I haven't been a kid since I was 12 years old," or something like that, and it's like,
oh,
and
the
it's like,
tears.
you know what I
Oh.
mean? Like, of course he was. He never got to be a kid.
Yeah.
He never got to be a kid. And but the thing that makes him different from other Batman is that he can talk about it.
Mm.
And there's a bit in like the second ever episode, I think, is Scarecrow asks him and he sees an image of his father saying he's ruined the it's where the famous "I am vengeance, I am the night, I am Batman" comes from at the end of the episode. But halfway through the episode, there's the sweetest fucking scene between him and Alfred that was ever written. It's really an Alfred scene because he basically says, "I saw an image of my father. He tells me I'm ruining the family name and that I'm bringing shame upon this house." And Alfred grabs him by the shoulders and goes, "That's rubbish. I know your father would be proud of you because I'm so proud of you."
Oh,
You know what I mean?
What a
And
legend.
and I think even like Bruce says to him, "Alfred, thank you." You know what I mean? Like, it's like a lot of Batman as depicted in media today or over the last couple of years, I don't think would be able to. Firstly, just to be able to cry in front of another man is something that like people don't seem to think is. You know what I mean? Like he's that's the beauty of Kevin Conroy is that he was convincingly a tough Batman, but was able to be vulnerable. He was able to tell the truth. He was able to emote to people.
But that was a core part of his motivation, though, as well, to do what he was doing as well. And I think that is some of the thing that is missing from some of the more recent incarnations of Batman, because it's like yeah, he wants to fight crime because he's wants revenge for his parents or whatever, so he's trying to stamp out crime. But then they kind of leave it there. They don't really delve much deeper beyond the surface of that a lot of times, and it's disappointing because it's weird. It's weird that in the 90s they had a more emotionally available, open Batman than they do today.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I think
crazy.
it's almost. I think it's like the Arkham Asylum games. It's the Arkham games effect, which are great games. But a video game is punch, punch,
true,
bash, bash. And everyone in that show, in that game, is like, a computer game character, like exaggerated, dark, and everything's just mean and evil. And Batman himself is still Kevin Conroy, but a lot tougher and a lot more curt and dismissive, and just like, "Alfred, I need to do this now." And it's like, okay, all right, I get it. But it means that you start thinking that Batman has just kind of got this, that's all he does. And it really isn't. And bringing it back to Broken Promise, one of the things that he did in the animated series that was so great was he always tries to save the villains. Always. Even if they're the worst villain. Maybe the Joker, not so much, but he won't kill him.
Yeah.
But every other villain, he's always trying to save. Even if they're like, they're about to fall off a building. He's like, "Well, grab my hand."
Yeah.
Because, there's a bit where he's like, "Grab my hand." And the other guy's like, "Never!" like he's literally begging to save these people.
Yeah.
And it's like they're always like, they kind of take away the option for him. But in Batman Broken Promise, there's two villains. Well, four villains if you're being pernickety. But he saves both of them at different moments in the film on a physical level. Like with the ventriloquist, he literally swipes him out of the way of some gunfire. He didn't need to do that. He didn't, like, it's just a mob boss getting taken out by another mob boss. Like, why should he care? And it's like, well, because he's Batman, of course he's going to save him. And then he saves Two-Face from his own Batmobile. Like, the Batmobile comes through the wall. And I remember thinking,
they jump over, don't they? Yeah.
He was like, I remember thinking, okay, so what's going to happen in the scene? Okay, the Batmobile comes through the wall and like charges at everyone and everyone scatters. But Two-Face doesn't, so Batman grabs him and pulls them both over the bonnet. And it's that way of like, because of course he's not just going to let somebody get mowed down. And then one of the key issues that a lot of people had with the Batman vs Superman is that in the car chase, there's just people getting pancaked by cars. And you're just like, how would that's not on, man.
Yeah.
just
See, I
can't do
don't know
that. So
about this, but that would throw me out of it,
yeah,
because this is what I mean. Like,
yeah.
it's like they miss the point of Batman sometimes.
Hmm.
It's
Well,
like you're missing the
the
core
thing is,
motivation of
yeah,
what he's about. You know?
there's a there's a there's like the most popular kind of defense of the Batman versus Superman thing is that like the whole film is him almost getting to the point of being a murderer and then he
Mm.
doesn't. But
Yeah,
then that argument holds no water because he kills half the people he does in the film after that happens. So it's like I finally learned that I'm not a killer. Bang 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 bang
after
bang. You
killing
know?
all these people. Sorry, guys.
It's just like okay, Bruce, well done.
That and
You leave that out of your journal when you get back to the cave tonight.
and these are the two perspectives as well, actually. Because I was just thinking about it then, and it's because they seem to be coming at it from two different angles. There's the angle of Batman being revenge for what happened to him, right?
Yeah,
And that's like the kind of harder, colder, the one that's getting
yeah,
closer to killing and dealing
yeah,
with that side of himself. But the Batman animated series version, the angle they were taking was he didn't want other people to go through what he went through. And
yeah,
that's
yeah,
that's more the driving motivation of
yeah,
that version of Batman. And to me,
yeah,
I think that is actually the true core of Batman.
yeah,
Or it should be, anyway.
yeah.
Usually, and unfortunately, that side of Batman just doesn't seem to be around anymore, and I think it's a
Well,
crying
I
shame.
think there's a reason for that. I think there's a reason for that. A simple reason, which is that the animated series has like 20 something episodes per season, right?
Right.
And there are 4 seasons.
Mm.
That's before the Justice League. And so the way they wrote Batman was how it should be, which was it's another day at the office. It's his job. He fights crime and it's always going to be there.
Mm.
As great a film as The Dark Knight Rises is, I don't like the fact that he just quits at the end. Like
Mm.
it's like Batman is just he it's a procedural. It's a police procedural
Mm.
show, you know, and so when I did my film, it was very much like this could just be any one night
Mm.
in his life.
Yeah,
There's just some drugs on the street. Batman's on the
he's
job.
just
He runs into
looking
Two-Face.
down the trail. Yeah,
It's definitely not the first time he's met Two-Face. It's
yeah,
definitely not the first. It's not like some important moment in their lives. It's just another day, and he has to do it. And that is what being Batman really would be like. And
Mm.
I think the Robert Pattinson one did that quite well. And it did just seem like I go out every night, and this is what I have to do tonight.
yeah,
Which I think is good. They had all the revenge stuff in there, but I think you're right. At core, at Batman's core, he should be someone who is doing a marathon, not a sprint.
yeah,
It's just his life, and he has to be in some way kind of well adjusted in order to do that, or at least
yeah,
functioning. He has to be a functioning crime fighter. And so
yeah.
whenever you saw Kevin Conroy, he'd always be like, whenever they're in the cave, he's just there. He's often typing. He's just there in the cave, just like Alfred, but just like, so what are we gonna do today? And it's just
Mm.
like, oh, this guy's made of clay. Oh, interesting, sir. Oh, that's weird. And it's just like that's just another day at the office for them.
Yeah.
And I think if I was making a movie of Batman, I would set it kind of like Matt Reeves did. I hope Matt Reeves makes a full trilogy, and at the end of the trilogy, there's no ending. Like I would love that because it starts after the beginning of the story, and it should end before the end of the story. It should just be the last thing you see.
Risky one, but yeah, good work.
He goes
If you
back
do it
out
right.
on the street because that's what the Tim Burton films did. The Tim Burton films, they pan up to the roof, and there's the bat signal, and he's back to work. That's how you end a movie.
Yeah,
That's
true.
how you end a fucking movie.
True,
You end
true.
a fucking movie with him being like, I'm Batman, I'm going to be around for a while. Whereas storytelling dynamics in today's world, everything has to be like an arc. It's like, actually,
Yeah.
it doesn't necessarily need to be an arc. You don't need to come up to the ending. The ending of Batman is that he's Batman. That's the ending of Batman.
Yeah, it's the
That's
never-ending
thing we're trying
slog.
to get to.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
It's like the crime's gonna be there tomorrow as well.
Like I always thought the end of the Dark Knight trilogy was going to be Batman has begun. It's going to be 3 films. He's met the Joker. Now he's begun. He is Batman. He was beginning. He's met the Joker. Now he's begun. It was going to be Batman begun. That was going to be the plot. And instead, they finished it. They finished the story. They closed the loop. And I just don't get it. I'm just like, well, what was the point of all that beginning? That Batman
Yeah,
beginning bit,
that just
And
sounds like
yeah,
like a Hollywood like a Hollywood thing where they just go 3 movies. If we're gonna do it, we're doing three, and then so we just have
yeah.
to make it work for
Well, I
three.
mean, they're great. They're all great movies, and I think Christopher Nolan was just future proofing it, so he would never have to
Mm.
make another one.
Yeah.
Probably,
To be honest, though, I'm not gonna lie. The Dark Knight Rises, the third one, it was seemed a bit. It was just off for me. Like I don't rate it. Or
Yeah,
I like
yeah,
Batman Begins and I like the Dark Knight. And then Dark Knight Rises is okay, but it's like there's loads of weird shit in it that I'm just like,
yeah.
there was no need for any
Well,
of this. Like,
I have a friend called Liam Dempsey, who's a wonderful podcaster and critic, and he loves The Dark Knight Rises. He thinks it's one of
really,
the greatest. He says it's if David Lean made a superhero movie. Like
I'm gonna
that's
have
his
to
thing.
argue with him.
Well, no, that's the thing because I can sense him. I can sense him watching this and then sending me a long, angry text. I have to acknowledge
Tell him to
that.
comment it on the
No.
video.
Well, no,
I'll
but he
argue
loved
in the
every hour of it.
comments. I don't care.
I think what it was, and we've all had this, was that he just had a religious experience in the cinema. He
Right.
just saw it in the right frame of mind, and it's solid.
It does
in his life.
happen. It's happened to me.
But
Yeah.
the thing for me is that it left a few things where it's just like, as a fan of Batman the character, I felt like this doesn't work. In that you can't do the Dark Knight Returns arc with him coming back after having quit for years if he's not 60. You know what I mean? So
He looks exactly the same, basically. It's
also, it's like the ending of the Dark Knight is him on the run from the cops, and if he stops being Batman that night, what's the point of that? It should have been, that you open in on Gotham, and Bruce Wayne is still living in a mansion. Like, it starts and he's all like Howard Hughes in the mansion with like a beard and stuff. They could have all had the idea that Bruce Wayne barely exists anymore. It should have been that Bruce Wayne barely exists because he's only been Batman, and he's been Batman on the streets killing himself for 5 years. Like, that would have been amazing. And that way, when Bane shows up, he literally is exhausted. He literally is knackered, like he is in the original Nightfall storyline. He's just so tired that Bane overpowers him. And that's how it should have been. But instead, they just had this odd thing where it's like he hasn't been Batman and he hasn't really been Bruce. He's kind of been nothing.
Yeah,
5 years.
just a recluse.
And it's like, yeah, just a recluse. And it's like, what would Bruce Wayne do if he actually did, he lost the love of his life and the worst thing happened to him? He would become Batman full time.
Yeah,
He would
see,
just throw himself into the monster. Yeah.
I agree with you. Like, it seems like they missed a trick a little bit. Like, in terms of like having him having a huge contention with the cops. That being explored would have been awesome. Like that, but they just.
Well, if you imagine, he spent
really
5 years not only chasing criminals but running away from cops and got away every time. Like, that's incredible. Like, what a legend.
And then he could have these like. He could meet up with Gary Oldman and on rooftops and stuff like that, and be like, "I can't keep protecting you, Batman," and blah blah blah, and whatever. And like,
exactly. Well, like Gordon would be his guy on the inside. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And also, it means that fans of the Dark Knight trilogy could imagine 5 years of him fighting other rogues. Like, it means the fan fiction and the extended, if you had like an extended universe of people writing books. We could have him fighting, Ra's al Ghul. No, we know he's killed Ra's al Ghul. We could have him fighting, Mr. Freeze or Clayface, or like a Nolan version of them, or the Riddler. You can imagine all that happening in those 5 years. Because if you're going to have him quit at the end, you want to feel like he's been Batman the whole time. And seeing those people. I mean, we've kind of talked ourselves into a little cul-de-sac here, but
sorry,
I love chatting about this stuff.
There's one more thing I want to say about Batman Rises. Okay, there's one. Sorry. I will move on from this, but there's one more thing I want to say about Batman Rises before we move on, because this sums up Batman Rises for me. Right? There's the bomb at the end.
Yeah.
And they've got to get rid of the bomb because it's going to blow up the city. And they've only got a few minutes. Yeah. But he stops to have a smooze with this girl, the Catwoman. Yeah. Starts to have a schmooze with her. And I'm like, whoa, what's going on? This is not Batman behavior. What's happening here? You've got like 2 minutes. What are you doing? Yeah. Then the next scene, he's got a big fire bat that he's somehow put on the side of a building.
Oh, that's not the same scene. That's like earlier.
Is that earlier?
Yeah, that was earlier. That was like a good half an hour earlier in the film.
No, it's not. I
That's
swear
when
to
he
God,
first
it's
comes
not.
back. No, no, I can guarantee you, I've seen this film more than you have.
Probably,
No, he does
probably.
smash. He does blow up a building so he can fly the Batwing through it
Yeah.
to get the bomb out of there.
Yes.
So he shows up. That's when he first returns as Batman after being incarcerated. Is the bat that he basically became a window washer and put gasoline on the side of a building or
Yeah.
something. It took him a good 3 hours to get that job done,
I,
but the effect was spectacular. You got to
yeah.
admit. So it was
I
it
think
was
that's
worth
just
the
more what I mean. Is
deviation.
like, okay, they were going for spectacular, but not it really making sense. And I think that's more
Yeah.
the core of what I was trying to get at.
Yeah. No.
And
Yeah. Exactly.
and but I can't. To be fair, it has been quite a while since I've seen the film, so maybe I am getting the scenes mixed up a little bit there.
But he does
but yeah.
dally because he smooches Catwoman and then he has a meaningful chat with Jim as well.
Right. Yeah, it's
There's
like
that moment where
it's like you've got
exactly. There's
3
that moment
minutes on the
where
clock or whatever it is. It's like a really
yeah,
short amount of
it's gonna
time,
take you that
and he's
long to
like dipping
clear the
about
city
doing some other
limits.
shit, and I'm
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
what is happening? This is weird.
It's film logic, isn't it? It's poetic license. But
Yeah.
I also found that bit with Jim. It's not quite how I would have done it. The bit where Gary Oldman, I would have done it slightly differently. But this is just me. This is just my own personal rewrite in my head.
Yeah.
When he goes like, a hero can be anyone, even someone as doing something as simple and as putting a blanket over a young boy's shoulders to let him know that the world hadn't ended. And that's the moment where Gary Oldman realizes, he goes, Bruce Wayne? Like that? I would have had it be that Batman says that to him, and then Gary Oldman just goes, because he already knows. Like he's
Yeah.
a good, like he'd already worked it out.
Or
and it
just a
didn't
slow
matter.
realization, but no words.
Yeah, just
like
just be like, I knew it was you.
Yeah.
Just like that, like a little smile, like a little like detective to detective smile of like,
yeah,
I knew it was. I thought it might have been you. Oh,
yeah.
you know?
That would have been
But
tasty. To be fair.
instead, it means they leave Jim Gordon looking a bit stupid.
Mm.
Kind of, he's just there going, ooh. That's actually really obvious when I think about it. No, I'm a bad detective.
Okay.
Anyway,
So I want.
I love the film though. I have no problem with any Batman. See, this is the thing. There's something wrong with every. It's like Doctor Who. There's no Doctor Who that hasn't, like, from the beginning to the end. Every Doctor Who has been shit in one way. You know what I mean? It just
Yeah.
changes from season to season.
I think there's some things that are more forgivable than others, though.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's like Batman is like if you were being like a purist, every Batman film would have something horribly
Oh
wrong.
yeah, it's not that there's things wrong with it. It's that it's more that there's certain glaring things, or like sometimes they miss the spirit of what it's meant to be. If that makes sense, that's more of a problem for me than like if the effects are a bit shit or if the writing's a bit not as great or whatever.
I think the worst thing for me would be if I'm watching a Batman film and Batman does something out of character.
Yeah.
That's
But this
the
is
thing
what I
with me.
mean. This is what I mean with The Dark Knight Rises. This is what I mean. Is like he does things out of character, and it just makes me go, "What? Like, what is going on?" That's what pulls me out. But anyway, I wanted to ask you about your journey with art because, like you said, you actually did a sketch from being 2 years old. I'm wondering, were you an avid artist from a young age, or okay. So what was
my brother and I, who's my identical twin brother, who is also the voice of Harvey Dent and Two-Face.
Oh no way! Okay.
Yeah, so David Trumble is the voice of Harvey Dent, and he has the role because being a twin, he understands duality.
Yeah.
And just from knowing him for years, I know that he could do it. It was just that thing of like, obviously, I'm just a guy making a fan film, so I'm like, okay, I'm not going to get like huge professional actors or whatever. So I was just like, who can I do it? And I knew that if I gave David Harvey Dent, he would nail it because he dressed up as Two-Face for a Batman the animated series themed birthday party that we had.
Nice.
Where we all in college, where we all went out, and I was Scarecrow with a sack on my head, and he painted one whole side of his face blue,
yeah,
but his hair all white, and he spent the entire film going like he spent the entire party going like this. Like that. And he did this the entire night.
How did he keep that up, man? Holy shit.
It was commitment. That was exactly what he looked like. And so I knew he could do it. So growing up with him was really interesting because we were both artists,
Mhm.
and for the first like 6-7 years of our life, we were, our sisters thought we might have been neurodivergent or something because we just lived in this world together of just storytelling and writing and drawing, and we would just draw, and it meant that we had this kind of, and in our school everyone knew who we were because they're like, oh, they're the twins, they're good at drawing, and then eventually it gets to the point where that becomes a bad thing, and then the bullying starts, and
People get
we
jealous.
were always kind of weird, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we were always a bit weird and not quite, didn't we would often talk really loudly to each other because we didn't realize that we were being, like we're just in our own little bubble, and so
Yeah.
we'd have a screaming match on the way to school, and we didn't realize everyone in the neighborhood is like, will those two kids like shut the fuck up, you know what I mean? But it meant that we kind of were in this little bubble, like becoming really like drawing and drawing and drawing and writing and writing. And even to this day, like he's a great person. He works in story art now. He's a story artist for animated movies.
Wow.
He's working at Netflix. He worked on
Amazing.
Wendell and Wild that just dropped. He
Oh,
was one
right.
of the main story artists in that film. But he's so good at story. Like he can just talk to you about, like, if you watch a film with him like The Dark Knight Rises, he'll be like, okay, here's what they should have done, and he'll start talking to you about it like that. And I think a lot of the Batman plot that is in Batman Broken Promise is probably from conversations I'd had with him for years about, like, oh, what would your Two-Face story be? And I'd be like, oh, I kind of think this, and this, and he'd be like, oh, that's cool, and we just kind of go back and forth. But it meant that I always knew I was going to be an artist or I was going to do something creative, but there was also a sense of naivety in that. When we were in our teenage years, my brother and I both decided we wanted to work in film and kind of wanted to be directors. And so we went to film school, and this is something that I think a lot of artists out there, hopefully, will identify with, which is that a lot of our lives are quite kind of defined by failure. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
Especially there seems to be a whole generation of people who just went to film school and then realized it's really hard to make films, because it's such an oversaturated thing now. All the technology, like, we get a camera, we could make something, and we've always had a lot of fun making films. But making films is something is made in a group, and you need to be good at talking to people or working with people, and it meant that it was difficult, and we then spent the next 10 years of our life, both of us, kind of trying to make films or trying to do various things and kind of failing at it, And on my side, I always wanted to make like a comic book, or I always wanted to make an animation, or I always wanted to make a film. And my whole 20s was just this endless list of unfinished projects. Basically, I was known amongst all my friends as being the guy who has amazing ideas, really good art, and they're always like, "Oh, it looks so good, Steve," but then he never makes it. He never finishes it. Like, I'll start something and then I won't finish. I was almost like allergic to finishing anything. Something else would come into my head and I'd be like, And so it's really nice that people like or seem to like Batman Broken Promise. There's so many
yeah.
lovely positive comments, which feels amazing. But at the same time, the real victory is that it exists at all.
That you even finished it.
It's the first thing that I finished in about 10 years. Do you know what I
Wow.
mean? And it all started in lockdown, and it was this thing where, I just moved in. Well, actually, I moved in with my girlfriend for lockdown. We'd only been going out for like 6 months. But things were going well, and we were like, "Oh, don't worry, the pandemic will only be 6 weeks. Let's
Oh, how wrong you were!
Oh God!" But then, very fortunately, I'm sure a lot of people's lockdown wasn't like this. But it went well, and now like I live here full time. Like, now we just live together, which is really lovely. It's really, because I'm sure a lot of people, I'm sure the pandemic probably broke quite a few couples.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I kind of, I would, she helped me. We went to like a, we went to a cheap, like a dollar, no, what was it? Like a used furniture shop, and we got like a cheap as dirt table, and we put it in her spare room, and that became my freelance working from home table.
Sweet.
Because I spent my entire 20s working as a storyboard artist,
Right.
for like commercial. It's basically just like freelancer, like just about earning enough to not get put on the streets. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like never really like succeeding. And most of the time being like, I would get, and then I got good enough at it that I would get paid a lot sometimes. You know,
Yeah.
like my year would be being freelance, and then getting paid very well to do a certain commercial, and then finally I can pay my rent, and I'm like, oh, okay, whew. But never any reason or rhyme to it. Like I have a lot of friends who are like, who would say to me, I can't believe you did that, because if you told me I didn't know where my next paycheck was coming from, I would freak out.
Mm.
And to which I would then say, if you told me I had to go into an office every day,
I'd freak
every day
out.
at the
Yeah.
same time, I would
Yeah.
freak out, because I'm socially awkward, and yeah, and so we got this table, and I started working from home, and I started doing. This guy got in touch with me who works for BT Sports, and he became my like bread and butter, because of the pandemic they weren't able to shoot anything, and so he said, "Well, we want to do some animations instead. Do you mind doing the artwork for it?" And I never animated; I just did art. So I said, "Okay, well, I'll do the art, and someone else can animate them." We made a couple of these like BT Sports shorts, which are on YouTube, which are like did really well.
Right.
And the funny thing is that like I didn't animate those, but because there was this lovely woman called Pola who animated my artwork, but I would make the frames for her to animate, and a lot of the
Right.
time they'd be UFC fighters. So I'm animating basically,
Right.
and I'm watching reference images, and I'm like, okay, so that's that, and that's that, and then slowly in my head I started thinking like, I could do Batman. Batman's just a guy who punches people, isn't he? I'm already drawing people punching people, and so I thought, fuck it, I ordered a Wacom tablet with like a paycheck that I'd
Yeah.
gotten. Like I'd gotten a good paycheck, so I was like, I'm gonna get a Wacom tablet and some animation software just as like a punt, you know, use a month's rent,
Yeah.
and just kind of get it.
And just cross your
And
fingers.
yeah, exactly. And I'd already started just drawing Batmobiles for fun, because it was just a way to get through the pandemic, and because the trailer for the Batman had come out, and it got me really excited. So I just started drawing Batmobiles, and people on Instagram were like, "Oh, I love your Batmobiles, man. That's really great," And so I animated a shot using, I think, Adobe Animate, and I didn't know how to use it. It's very kind of self-taught, kind of same thing with Photoshop. Actually, I taught myself how to do Photoshop as well. It's so weird. It's so funny when I go into an actual office with graphic designers, because they're all like shortcut, and I'm like, well, I don't know what you're doing.
The keyboard
like a
shortcuts are a godsend, I tell you.
I used to draw using the touchpad of my laptop. Like I'm actually like a diva with the touchpad, man.
That's actually a skill, though.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you,
It's
that's
really
a skill.
difficult. Yeah, exactly. So I animated one shot, and it was the shot of Batman smashing the light,
Oh yeah.
and then taking out the guy, and that shot is still in the film, and it was just great, because like if you're gonna teach yourself how to animate, I was just like, well, okay, I'm gonna teach myself how to animate. What am I gonna do? Well, I'll do Batman beating up a bunch of guys, because at least I'll know what it's supposed to look like. And honestly, I'm being completely honest, it wasn't planned to be a 15-minute film at all. It was reverse engineered into a 15-minute film.
Right.
Like,
So it started off with that fight scene.
It was Batman. It was just one shot. It was Batman doing that. I'm like, that's cool. So I started doing it. I'll make a little fight scene. What I'll do is I'll make a little fight scene. It'll look really cool. I'll just pop it on YouTube. It'll be like a minute long. That'll be it. So I started doing that. And then it's like, okay. So he's beating up these guys. Oh, I kind of want him to fight Two-Face. I love Two-Face. Okay, I'll do a scene with Two-Face. Okay, because I start doing the scene with Two-Face. And then I start thinking, okay, so why is he fighting Two-Face? So then I start coming up with a plot. And Ventriloquist wasn't even in it until like halfway through the process. Because I remember I had this thought when I was like...
Interesting pick, by the way. Interesting pick for Ventriloquist, by the way. I appreciated that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting how weird it is that like a lot of people, when they pick Batman rogues, they pick people who are contrasting. And I think it's interesting to actually pick characters that have something in common with each other. Like those are two characters who you could see actually interacting.
Yeah,
you've got these two split personalities that they're this weird mirror of each other, and like so the scenes between them, or even the scenes when they're talking about each other, are really loaded. There's that bit where Scarface is like, him and me, we're the same. And like you see Arnold like look at him like, what do you mean? You know, and it's that thing. I think Scarface is saying like, we both have scars on our face. You know, he hasn't got the deeper meaning.
Right.
But really, it's just the fact that they really are the same person.
Yeah.
And then if you put it into the political side of it, Arnold is actually a more important character than you think, because he is basically every angry guy on the internet. Or not even angry, but like he basically is a guy who wants to surrender his autonomy to somebody else. You know, he's an innocent.
Okay.
But and he's got Scarface who tells him what to do, and then he betrays Scarface because he wants Two-Face to tell him what to do, not because he wants to kill Scarface. He just wants, and then of course Two-Face betrays him anyway. So it's like he's basically this guy who's just like, I've just surrendered. I just want someone to tell me what to do, and I think that's actually, if you know, it's a political reading that I think is really important, that I think a lot of people might not even get. I think it's only really occurred to me like as I was making it, which was this feeling that not only do you have the polarization in the world, but you have these people, legions of people out there who are so angry and they don't know why they're angry. And like Two-Face especially, he's like full of rage. When you take the coin away from him, he's just angry. And then you've got Arnold, who's like, just take my choices away from me. Please just take my choices away from me. I can't stand having to make a choice. I can't stand having to be the one to blame for my own problems. And so he surrenders it, you know. And I think that's a really interesting part. But weirdly, the only reason why he was in the film was because I'd drawn the shot of Two-Face stood with the two gangs behind him.
Yes.
And I was like, he's Two-Face, so he's got two gangs. He's got a poor gang and he's got a rich gang. That's cool. And I'm like, great. And then the writer brain goes, but where did he get the other gang from? And then I was like, oh shit, he's going to have to take it from another mob boss. So then you start thinking, okay, well, it could be Carmine Falcone, you know, it could be any of these named, you know, it could be Stromwell, it could be, you know, Daggett, it could be any of these characters. And that's when I thought, oh God. Because then Ventriloquist came into my head and I was like, do you ever have that thing? I don't know. I don't know. You an artist as well? Do you
yeah, I do. Yeah.
Right. Well, do you ever have that idea where you're like, oh, now I have to do that? You know, because the idea comes into your head and it's so good, but it's almost you almost get angry. You're like, oh fuck, I'm gonna have to do it. You know, because it's like the film is already too long. My girlfriend is expecting it to be finished. You know, my girlfriend's like witnessing. And
now I have to add a whole
like,
extra 5 minutes to this.
Yeah, she was like, you have 7. She was like, your maximum. I'm only giving you 7 minutes. She was like, you have 7 minutes, and then you have to finish it. She wanted me to finish it. She was like, you will finish it if it's 7 minutes. And I'm like, okay, cool. 7 minutes. And then we get to like 5.5 minutes. And then I realized I want to put the ventriloquist in it.
It was a good move though. And this is another thing. And this is another thing that you didn't quite touch on there, but is something that I took. I think I mentioned it in my review, but I don't think I expanded on it too much though. But I really liked the contrast between the kind of working class element and the kind of upper class element as well. I mean, like, I don't have a lot to say about it exactly, but I just liked the juxtaposition. I liked that there was kind of a rich gang and a poor gang. I liked that the ventriloquist represented the kind of street level people, and then Two-Face kind of represents the kind of upper class, and they make sense being that. You know what I mean? Like, they make sense. Like, obviously with Harvey Dent's background as an upper crust politician and all that stuff.
Yeah,
and then obviously
he was in the circle. Yeah, exactly.
And then, like you say, with ventriloquist, he's obviously just a mentally ill person from some trailer park somewhere, probably. I don't actually know his whole backstory, but you know what I mean. He's obviously not. He's just like the dregs of society, essentially.
He's also like a good businessman. You know what I mean? He kind of the Scarface's part in the story is basically he's from the streets, but he is also he if you think about Two-Face as a guy who represents
very shrewd.
Yeah, no, it's like if Batman represents good and Two-Face represents chaos. It actually is quite telling that, and I think I only even realized this after the fact, that Two-Face is represented by red, Batman's represented by blue, and then Scarface is wearing a purple jumpsuit. So it's almost like he's halfway. He'll kill you, but only because it's business, not because he's a psycho. You know what I mean? And I think you're right about the idea of it being. I liked touching on that and the idea that when the people are dying of the drugs, it was very important to me to have a yuppie dead in a penthouse and all the
Yes.
cops surrounded by him. And then Batman is the only one. There's one of my favorite shots is Batman stood like the Angel of Death
In the
over the
alleyway.
top.
Oh,
Yeah,
looking
over the
down, you
top
mean?
of.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
No. Stood in front of the two
Yeah.
dead people, the
Yeah.
street people, and it being like, if it wasn't for Batman, no one would have even known that they died.
Yeah.
Because, but it's the thing is that Batman cares.
Mm.
Batman's the only one who cares about people at the lowest level and the people, So in a way, the whole case is unraveled just because Batman cares, even if two junkies die in the street.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
He's literally
And
in
the
the
idea that
gutters looking for them.
and that shot with him stood in front of them, it's like not to get too metaphorical, but it's like he's their witness.
Mm.
He's the only witness to them. He's the Grim Reaper himself. He's just there being like, I see that you've died and your life does matter, and that's what leads him on the kind of quest. And so yeah, there is a kind of weird, kind of like the inequalities of society. That is political. Like the film does make points about mass incarceration. The reason Two-Face is he's trying to remove inequality. Because if there's one thing that Two-Face would hate, it's inequality. Because he's completely equal. He's 50-50. He needs it to be equal. And the thing is, the world is not equal.
No.
There are systems in place that make things unequal. And Two-Face has found a really bad way of making it equal.
Yeah. This is another thing I wanted to touch on, actually, that I thought was a really interesting thing, was that because in an element, in a certain respect, you're kind of showing. I wanted to say first I was going to say critiquing, but I don't think it's a critique really. It's more that you're making an observation that there are the ways that in which people try to go for equality or trying to make a quote unquote fairer world or whatever.
Yeah, justice.
Yeah, can actually take a sinister turn if you're not careful. Exactly. And I mean, I think just for a historical example, you could look at the French Revolution for something like that. But like Two-Face is kind of the embodiment of that. He's like he is the caricature of the French Revolution in a person, in a character. So like, I really liked that because
he's like Jean Valjean and Javert in one person.
Might as well be, because when he's chopping people's heads off, he's flipping a coin first. But
exactly.
But like it's
do the confrontation scene just by himself.
Oh, that'd be a great scene, doing a Two-Face scene where he's looking in the mirror and he's just talking to himself. That'd be cool. But anyway,
with a cutler.
Yeah, but like the thing that I found, like, because a lot of people, because it's not just the polarization, it's that sometimes the ideologies are a bit messed up, and the way people interpret ideologies is a bit messed up and stuff like that as well, and the way they try to enact it in the world. And I really liked that because it wasn't like you were trying to critique quality, and like you said, you're a liberal guy yourself, you probably.
I think the thing is, I wasn't trying to offer a solution.
No,
like I wasn't saying what the right way was.
No,
I wasn't even necessarily saying what the wrong way. It was more of a fact that the thing that Batman provides in this is it's about choice. He's like basically saying like, listen, there's the right thing to do, and it's this, but you have to choose to do it. You can't just say, you can't just put a bunch of rules in your head and follow those rules and everything will be fine. You know what I mean? And that goes for both the liberal and the conservative side of Two-Face. If you're a conservative, then it's criminals are scum. If you're poor, you're probably a criminal, and it's like, it's just a hard line, but I have rules. If you don't like this, then you're bad. And if you like this, you're good. And then like, even on the liberal side, you also have that as well, and it means that you have these rules that are kind of like in place, but it means that you're kind of trapped in this kind of cage. Whereas Batman is like, Batman could look at someone and be like, I know that the right thing to do is to save that person. I know that that's not fair, what's happening to that person, and I choose to do something about it.
Yeah.
As opposed to kind of trying to trying to, I mean, a lot of the most evil people in history have been like intellectuals,
Very.
I mean, or not even intellectuals, but people who believe themselves to be intellectuals,
No, I would counter that. I'm a bit of a history guy, and like I
Mm.
would say that a lot of them were very intellectual, probably
Yeah,
beyond
yeah,
their own good, really.
yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of the problems in the world a lot of the problems in the world to do with inequality are very obvious, and you
Mm.
see them every day. You know what I mean? And you say to yourself, "Oh, that's wrong," and you know it is, and I think it's one of those things where I think it's so weird that people get. I think people in the world, again, this is the polarization. They take the wrong because again, we're getting into dicey territory talking about this because I don't want to try and. It's one of those funny things where it's like my issue with the world today is that polarization. It's the fact that if you're wrong, then the other person. No, if you're right, the other person must be wrong, and vice
Yeah,
versa.
it's not that there can't be
And yeah.
merits to both sides.
Well, it's
It
not even about merit because merits for both sides sounds like a bit of a bullshit thing to say. You know what I mean? Like, or like it's that it can be a bit of a problematic way of thinking about like, well, I can see merits on both sides, and it's like, no, they're Nazis, man, get rid of them. But at the same time, I think that it's more that I think that people are kind of trying to be like Two Face in that they're trying to fix everything in an absolute way.
Mm.
It's like it's a way that is uncompromised. It's a way that doesn't invite any conversation or all this kind of thing.
I think I know
I
what you
think
mean. I think on like the liberal side, that would look a little bit like, say, people pushing for 50-50 parity of women in certain fields of work or whatever, which
oh
is
well,
like,
I would be all for that.
it's not that I'm
It's one of
against it. It's just that the realistic side of it is that it's probably not likely to happen for a multitude of different reasons, and lots of them just being that a lot of women are just maybe not even interested in some of these things. So it's just,
well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, I think you talk to most women, they all have, I think it's not a prudent thing to try and assume what most women think. That's been
I
the
mean,
lesson that
I'll just put it this way: it's not
yeah,
often that I meet a woman who's interested in plumbing. I'll say that, but like,
right.
but or fixing cars or anything of that nature. But
I'm
like,
sure they exist. I'm
I'm
sure
not
they
saying they don't
exist.
exist. What I'm saying is
Yeah,
there's not many. So,
right.
what the
But then a lot of that is like, you know, like structures that have been that through history have been kind of put onto people. Like
potentially? I
like
mean,
like like like
I
if
don't
you,
know.
you fast, if you rewind back to halfway through the Second World War, there were a fuckload of women plumbers, and there were a fuckload of women factory workers, and there are a
Sure.
fuckload of women uh, um, air raid siren, operators, and
Yeah, sure.
it's never a good idea to try and just like
I think what I'm trying
assume
to
that
say is
everything's like
that when given the choice, because in those circumstances, women weren't really necessarily given the choice. It was a life or death situation, so they
yeah,
were forced into these roles due to the circumstances. But when it comes to actual personal choice, I don't know if I mean a lot of men are not even necessarily interested in some of these things, let alone let
yeah,
alone let
I'm one of
alone
them.
women as well. Let alone women as well. So I'm just saying that like when I look at cultural trends, I'm just thinking, you know, these things can happen. And I forgot
Well,
why I even brought this up now. I was
well,
actually
no,
trying to make a point, but
no. Sorry, I don't mean to like school you on liberal stuff, but it's like it's funny, isn't it? Because it's like I find a lot of the stuff to do with discourse about women, especially in the geek world, really funny. Because if there's anyone who should have empathy with with women,
mm,
it's geeks. Because we are by and large not the idea of a masculine presence. You know what I mean?
sure.
And it's just as legitimate for us to be the way we are as it is for women to be any way they want to be.
Of
You know what I
course,
mean?
yeah. I wasn't saying anything was
Yeah,
legitimate
yeah,
or
yeah,
not. All I was trying to
yeah, yeah.
say was that okay, yeah, I remember what my point was now. Like
Right,
when
yeah.
you're talking about people trying to create this equality in an absolute term, is that like they would not be satisfied if there was like 30% women in STEM fields, just from their own choice, and they've made it as
Right.
free as possible as it all could possibly be. There's nothing to stop women from going into STEM. There's literally no cultural barriers or anything, but they're simply not choosing to do it. But they would not be happy with that. They want 50%, not the 30%. And that's them not thinking about all the free will that people have, or the natural inclinations that they might have, or the cultural context, or whatever else you want to say. That's them being absolutist, and that's why I was bringing it up. I wasn't trying to make a comment about
Yeah.
women.
Oh, no, that's fine.
I was just trying to make a point of like, there's people out there who are on this liberal side who are not, because I'm more on that liberal side. I don't know if I'm as liberal as you necessarily, but I'm definitely there. But I noticed these things, and I liked that you kind of addressed it in a way that was not like trying to dunk on people. It wasn't.
Yeah,
Like I
yeah.
say, it wasn't an
Yeah.
overt thing, but it's there in the subtext of it, and I liked that a lot.
The way that people fall into a trap is when they, as you say, try and dunk on people. It's when you get this kind of thing of like, you say something, you make a statement, and then you look around like, because we all agree with that, right? You know, you get this kind of like mob mentality, but it means that like 50% of your audience is going to be like, no, I don't think that.
Yeah.
You know? And it means no matter what happens, you've polarized your audience. You know, and
Yeah.
I think that when it comes to Two-Face, it's one of those things where, yeah, he is, one half of him is Harvey Dent, who's trying as hard as he can to be the most fair, the most liberal person. But I think the kind of my route into that is less about making a statement about that. I mean, I'm glad that reading is in there, because, as I say, it actually means that the film can be enjoyed by anyone on the political spectrum, really.
Oh,
if you're a
100%, yeah.
Like, I think there's a lot. I'm sure there's a lot of people who are quite right wing who have watched it and were just like, "That was a dope Batman film,
I can
man."
imagine
You know,
they
like,
probably
you know
do.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I bet there is. But I think the kind of message that's kind of more that is kind of hidden underneath is this idea of rage being hidden underneath it. In that, you know, when once Harvey flips the coin and Batman steals the coin, the only thing that's left is this rabid monster. You know what I mean? And he kind of is the whole of him. And there's a bit where Batman says, "All you've done is democratize your own hate." And the idea being that even if you had the best of intentions, you know, even if you were trying to make the world completely fair, you're a human being and you're susceptible to your own hatred and your own emotions. And he thinks he's doing it right, but he doesn't realize he's sitting on a powder keg of anger.
Yeah.
You know, Harvey Dent is just a man, and I will agree, actually, weirdly, that like a lot of, you know, there's a lot of fake liberals out there, you know, or not fake liberals, but there's people out there who know how to speak like a liberal, you know,
Sure.
and they don't realize they're actually like, you know what I mean, so
They don't actually hold the principles.
yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly. Like they, you know, there's a lot of people out there who kind of, you know, this is where you get into the quote virtue signaling unquote, you know, but you kind of get this idea of like, of people being, of people not realizing that actually underneath there is a lot of other stuff going on, and especially when it comes to political things. I think if I had to kind of say one thing to like everyone in the world, like right now, you know, if I could just speak to everyone in the world, I would just go, why are you so angry? You know, because that's the real problem. The problem isn't this person's doing this or this person's doing that, and I don't like this, and it's why are you so angry? You're just so angry. You don't know why. On both sides, you don't know why you're so angry. You're just, all you know is that you're furious about something. And like Arnold Wesker, you want someone to come along and tell you why you're furious.
Yeah.
And that's how you get people on the internet becoming men's rights activists or fascists or you know, anything. You know, extremists of any kind, because it's like, I'm angry and I'm on the website where the man will tell me why I'm angry.
Yeah.
You know, I want to know whose fault it is that I'm angry. I want to know who, you know, what I can do to get justice for why I'm so angry, you know.
Yeah.
And I think when I was a younger man, when I was in my 20s, I was very close to becoming quite an angry person, you know, a bitter, resentful person, you know what I mean? And you know, and I was a shy guy, you know. I didn't have a girlfriend, you know, for most of my 20s. You know, I was a very, very repressed, shy guy, and it manifested as anger, as rage. But I wasn't a violent person. I wasn't like, because I was too shy to be a violent person, you know. And I had a lot of friends, and they all knew I was a nice guy. It was all very kind of like, oh, Steve's fine, Steve's okay. But I would also be this kind of like, I would moan It's the worst when you're a moaner, and you start talking about like, oh, it never goes well for me, and all this stuff. And then I remember having an argument with my brother. Well, not an argument. I think I had too much to drink, and I just started yelling in the middle of the street in
It
Oxford.
happens, yeah. We've all been
And
there.
I was yelling so much that a guy on a bike told me to shut the fuck up as he was cycling past. So he only knew me for the length of a Doppler effect,
Yeah.
and he still was like, "This guy needs to shut his fucking mouth," And I was like, "Fuck you, man!" I was like, still getting angry. And my brother, bless him, was just like he knew exactly what to do, and he said, "Why are you so angry?" Just he was just like, "What do you want? What do you want? What do you actually want? What do you want?" And I said, I just blurted it out. I was like, I want someone to blame. I want someone whose fault it is.
Mm.
And David was just like, there's nobody. There's nobody whose fault it is. And he was like, even you can't even blame yourself. There's never going to be any justice for why you feel like this. There's no one to blame. And that was like, I can literally point to that as like a watershed moment in my life of like when I let go a lot of my anger, because I realized it was just like, it was just there in me. I was just an angry person. And I think, especially on the internet, and even with it, especially within fandoms, you see people and they're just so angry all the time. And it's like, and there are things that you can be angry about. You can be angry about something that you like. But you shouldn't be so angry that you write 3 2-hour-long YouTube essays about why you don't like it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's almost like the Dylan Moran joke. Do you remember that Dylan Moran joke where he goes, "Oh, how I hate you! I hate you so much it gives me energy."
Yeah. I don't know, but
that
is very Dylan Moran. Yeah.
Fueled. There are people who are just fueled by how angry they are. It gives them energy to make art, to produce things. You know,
it can be a great motivator if used in the right way, definitely. But I know what you mean. It takes people over to a point where, it makes, because I had a similar moment in my life as well. Like as a like when I was roughly about 19, well, between 17 and 19, I think I went through a bit of a process where I realised I was going down the angry road. I think it's a lot of men have to deal with at some time or another in their life. I think not that women don't get angry, but I just think testosterone's a hell of a hormone. And I think
I think there is it's societal and it's hormonal. There's definitely something that happens to young men, I think, and I think society as was and as is now, but less so. I think didn't tell us how to deal with it. We needed Kevin Conroy to come and tell us how to be men. That's what we needed.
Basically,
we really needed that.
Yeah. So I think like so I understand what you mean with that, and it's good that you had that that realization. And I think a lot of people as they get older are lucky enough to have that experience and realize like, hey, I need to calm down a bit. And I like that the Broken Promise is, because like it's very layered. I mean, it's a comment on that. It's a comment on polarization. It's a comment on class structures. It's a comment on it's a comment on so many things in just a short 14-minute odd video. And this is why I have to give it so much praise, really, because in my mind, like that kind of level of layers of writing is not even being done in standard Hollywood or Netflix or whatever you want to say, TV shows or anything, or movies even. Like the level of symbology or the things that you're thinking about, the complex nature of it. This was like pre-writer's strike stuff. If you remember what I'm talking about. So like
there's a lot of formula now. Like everyone read the Pixar manual. Do you remember like when Pixar came up with the perfect plot or whatever it was, and it was like guy is selfish. It's basically Woody in Toy Story, basically.
Right.
All Pixar movies. Like I love Pixar movies, but they've only just recently started breaking their own mold and actually giving us different plots. But nearly every Pixar movie is there's a guy who wants something selfishly, goes too far, makes a mistake, and then slowly has to make up for it and become a better person. That's the story, right? And it's like a lot of great films don't have that plot.
No.
Like, Empire Strikes Back doesn't have that plot. Empire Strikes Back is the main driving force of Empire Strikes Back is that Luke sees Han and Leia being tortured. in his mind,
Mm.
and then he makes the wrong choice for the right decision, even though he makes the wrong move for the right reason.
Yeah.
Which is he knows it's a trap. Yoda tells him it's a trap. Obi-Wan tells him it's a trap, and he's
Yeah.
like, "But I got to. They're my friends. I can't let them die. They're my friends. I've got to go." And we know it's a mistake, and he knows it's a mistake, and he does it anyway, and that's the plot. And that's such a complex idea because it's not just I'm watching a piece of media and I know exactly, that's the selfish guy and he's about to do something selfish and then he's going to learn his lesson, And it's like, I think you're right that a lot of the stuff we see nowadays is kind of, it's very cut and paste. It's very like, here's the main character and this is what they do, and and then there's a lot of symbology, but often it's quite, it's often quite like signposted. Like what it's about. This is what it's going to be about. Here's the metaphor. This is about this.
Yeah, it's too on the nose. It's not. It's like, so. For instance, with Star Wars, there one of the big themes that's undercurrent in that original series is the sins of the father and not becoming your father. Like that whole thing where he goes into the cave and he fights Darth Vader, and then it's his face under the mask, and it's like, am I going to become this? And that is actually a journey that people go through in real life from their influence from their parents. And to me, that's like a deeper theme that is very masterfully put into it underneath it all. It's like a subtext underneath the whole series, that original series. And like I say, in movies these days, you might get like a motif towards that, edging towards that kind of idea, but they'll usually make it really on the nose or like basically explain it to your face, and it's just like, you're just ruining this whole effect. Like you're telling me you'll literally have a character going, I don't want to become my dad, and it's like, it's just like, okay, well this is just like, I don't have to think anymore. And this is another thing that I don't like about modern media, is that people sit down and will actually say things like, I just want to watch it and not think. And I'm like, mate, why do you not want to think? Like, that's so, like, the things that I love make me think the most. You know what I mean? Like, they're activating me. They're making me energized and inspiring me. Not sitting there like a potato, like not no. And again, this is another reason why I loved Broken Promise. This is why I knew I had to make a video about it. It's because when I watched it, I was just like, wow, this is. There's so many different layers to it. Some that I didn't realize until we started speaking today. But like there's some things to it that I just thought, this is impressive, and it has to, and that's why I wanted to highlight what was impressive about it and not just do a reaction video. I wanted to do a proper review that actually points out what is impressive about it. So like,
it's funny because the animation in it isn't perfect.
No,
one of those funny things.
It's funny you say that. It's funny you say that. Because I was actually gonna. Oh, go on. Sorry, go on. Finish your point.
No, just because like it has a lot of techniques and tricks. Like you said in your review, like it knows how to. I've been doing art long enough that I know how to. But I'd done this thing where I just said to myself, lean into the limitation. Have it be your style is. It's going to look kind of scruffy.
Yeah.
But then
that's what South Park did.
Exactly. And it was like, imagine that, like, okay, you can't make something as good as like a big studio. It's never going to look like Into the Spider-Verse, as much as we all would love it to look like Into the Spider-Verse.
Sure.
So what you do is you make it look like it's something that you sketched. It's like a comic book. And it's almost like a motion comic. Yeah. And it's animated on 2s and sometimes 1s and sometimes 3s, but like mostly kind of like quite jittery. And I actually went back and looked at the animated series, and I realized the animated series has got lots of mistakes in it.
Yeah.
Like because they didn't have time. They're making a TV show. Sometimes you'll see Batman's cape will do the wrong thing, or someone forgot to color in something.
Yeah.
And you're like, it doesn't matter because I love this show.
Yeah.
And you realize actually that's why animation is specifically so magical. It's the same reason why often stop motion animation is better than computer animation, and why stop motion animation that hasn't been touched up in computer animation is is not as good as a stop motion where you can see that it's stop motion.
Yeah.
Where you can see the like in Wallace and Gromit, you can see the fingerprints on them.
Yeah.
And it's because there's something about the fact that we know that someone made it, that it's made, that is magical. And I think when you have something that's so fluid, and it's like that. Like I've seen a lot of like anime and stuff where it's so fluid,
Mm.
and it's like it may as well be like a dream. You may as well actually be just living it. And to me, it's less special than a Studio Ghibli movie where characters will be animated on twos and the characters are simple. The backgrounds will be beautifully painted, but the actual movement of the characters is quite simple. And that makes it tactile. It feels real. It feels loved. It feels like somebody took some effort into it.
And then when those scenes happen
Yes.
where there is more fluid animation in things like Studio Ghibli, they pop out even more because of that.
I mean, obviously, I have huge respect for any artist you can do like animating on wands,
Yeah,
and that's
it's
fluid mode.
crazy.
Like those people are magicians.
Yeah,
I don't have a problem with people who do computer animation. I just think it's so beyond me that I was like, okay, what can I achieve here? I can make something that looks like I made it, and I made it as best I can, and hopefully the story's okay.
yeah,
And I think, fortunately, I think a lot of the people who like it in the comments, most of the comments aren't about the way it looks. They're mostly about the story, or they're about the
yeah.
characters, which is really lovely because it means that at some point they stopped thinking about the fact they were watching an animation and started
Yeah.
enjoying the story.
No, I think the story does absolutely shine, 100%. I think one thing I was going to say though is that it is weird that you said that the animation looks a little janky, because I was actually going to say that in my review, but then I was like, nah, that's probably something I'd say for like proper media,
Yeah.
and that's like more like a nitpick thing that I would say.
No, but the thing is, I would go out there and say deliberately janky.
Mm.
Like I made efforts to make it janky.
But it works
was
really
like-
well,
I was like,
especially
yeah,
with
yeah,
the
yeah.
especially with the action sequences, because of how, because I'm assuming that you took the kind of Krav Maga, like kind of Batman Begins style. That's how it looks to me anyway. It's like the kind of elbows and like the kind of dirty fighting, getting
But
in
it's
close.
very kind of it's very economic.
Yeah.
It's how fast can I get rid of this guy and move on to the next guy,
Yeah.
which is very Batman Begins in a way.
Exactly. Yeah. It really looked a lot like that to me, and I thought, oh, that's like, to me that's a really good way to animate this, because it's a very blocky way of fighting. Like you just go bah, 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 and you move it
Exactly.
very rigidly, and it,
Yeah,
and
I watched
it
a lot of
works really
films
well.
like The Raid and things like
Oh,
that.
Raid's a great
because,
film. Yeah.
because you have that fighting style is very. It's all about using your shoulders and your
Yeah.
arms and elbows, and it's all just like very brutal, but very simple movements, but just done in this kind of like expert way. Yeah, and so it meant that kind of like the old BT Sports commercials that I did, the animated things, shorts that I did. It was like, okay, I'm animating Floyd Mayweather or something.
Wow.
Boom, bang,
Yeah.
this, that. It's like what are the shapes, And also when you're animating, it's really fun because when you're animating, you're doing it so slow, it takes ages to animate. So you can work out exactly where the character is exposed. Someone throws a punch, Batman blocks. Where can he punch? So I'm working it out as I'm doing it. It's literally like I'm fighting in slow motion. So it's like bang, and then gets in the kidney there, and then because of that, he's left this part exposed, so Two-Face can come in there. And it's actually really fun, to kind of work those bits out.
Yeah, it's like a little chess game thing going on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well,
The janky animation works really well for that.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
it makes punches have a snap to it.
Oh yeah, you feel the impact in it, which is, like I say, whether you meant it to be or not, and you're saying it was meant to be, but irregardless of that, I think it was you did it very well, and I think it just worked. It just worked really, really well. So fair play to you.
Yes.
What was I going to say now then? I don't know how long have we been going for as well. We're going 1:40.
It's 8:43. My God.
Right, okay, I'll tell you what, we'll wrap this up then, because I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but we've had a good old natter. But
yeah, it's been fantastic, yeah.
It's been
a good chat.
I will say thank you very much for coming on. I can't thank you enough, and I would like, I'll speak to you after this about that, because I don't want to reveal to the audience just yet. But I was going to ask some like fun questions, but I feel like we've
No, please. No, that sounds good. No, I mean, unless you're getting bored.
No, it's not about being bored. It's more about that it's getting a bit late, and also I'm hyper aware that I'm taking up a lot of your time right now. So
that's fine. No. Well, let's say it's 8:45. let's not go beyond 9.
Yeah.
About
All right.
that.
I tell you what,
Right.
then I'll do one of the questions that I can remember off the top of my head.
Okay.
But who is your favorite Batman character who is not Batman or the Joker?
That's really interesting. Oh, it's a tough one. I mean, the simple answer would be Two-Face, because I think he's a very undervalued character.
Yeah.
And the
true.
main reason he's undervalued is because if you look at any depiction of Two-Face in the last like 20, 30 years, especially in film, I don't know about the comics have probably done a little bit more with him, but what do they do? Okay, what does Two-Face do? He shows up, he flips a coin, right?
Mhm.
So how does the scene go? The scene goes, hey, I'm Two-Face, I'm gonna flip a coin. He flips the coin, it's bad heads, I'm gonna kill you, now you gotta get away from Two-Face. That's the scene. But a coin is 50-50, so it can't always land bad heads. And the thing that's so interesting about his character is that he's a good guy half the time. He's a good man. He's Harvey Dent. He wants to do the right thing. And his problem isn't that he's a psycho. His problem is that his integrity is too good. You know, his problem is that he sticks to his rules. Other people pretend to stick to the rules. He sticks to his rules.
Yeah,
he
for better
will
or
not
for
compromise.
worse. Yeah.
Yeah, like that line at the end of Batman Broken Promise. He's like, no compromises. You know, and so it's weird to me that he's been a character that's been in use for almost as long as Batman has. You know, 70, 80 years. And yet, really, he should 50% of the time he should be Batman's ally. Or you know, why does it never land good heads in a Two-Face story? Like, I think that was one of the reasons I did the story I did, because the film ends with good side up, and the whole story is building to Two-Face just giving up. And people forget that in The Long Halloween, it ends with him surrendering to Jim and Batman on the roof. He goes, "You got to take me in," because he won't compromise. He's like, "Yeah, I killed those guys. I did it. Take me in." Because he's still a good man. You know, he probably flipped and he thought, "Boom, okay, good heads. I'm going to turn myself in."
Yeah.
And then if you look at him in the Arkham games, you look at him in the Telltale games, you look at him in nearly every other thing. Even in the later versions of the animated series, like in the 4th season of the animated series, he's basically just this kind of mob boss, you know. It's like
usually
the he's a character who has infinite potential. He literally can go one way or the other, equal amounts of time. So why is he always the bad guy? Why is he always a monster who's trying to kill you? You know,
I know what you mean. It's like because he's just pigeonholed as a villain, I guess. You know, so that's probably why.
People love the big bad Harv. You know, the kind of the evil guy. They love that. It's like, yeah, heads or tails, kitty cat. Like they just love that. He's got 2 guns and he shoots with the 2 guns. You know, and it's like, yeah, it's great, it's fun. But at the same time, how cool would it be if in a scene like Batman's there, Two-Face is there, Two-Face flips the coin, it's good, and he's like, right, well, I guess I'm on your side tonight. You know, or I'm going to help you. You know, because why wouldn't he? The coin told him to, you know. So I think that would be my answer if I was being obvious. If I'm trying to think of more obscure or I'd say maybe Alfred. I think Alfred doesn't get enough love either.
That's a good pick. That's a very good pick.
It was a real tragedy actually that Alfred, I didn't get to do an Alfred scene because I think I probably could have voiced it. You know, and I think he's a fun character because he's Bruce's dad. You know,
yeah, pretty much.
And I think, you know, that that he's another undervalued character, and to the point where, you know, whenever he shows up, even in the comics, he shows up, and it's always just like, I mean, there's only so much you can do with him, really. I think he's a character where his permanence is what's interesting about him, kind of like Batman himself. You know? And I wish I could see more media where he's allowed to be more emotionally honest with him, like he is in the animated series. His confidant, someone who actually understands. He's not just somebody who he has conflict with, because Batman's a dick, right? Batman's a dick. So he's mean to his father figure, he's mean to his kids, he's mean to anyone who loves him. It's like, no. Imagine that maybe his dad brought him up right. you know,
Yeah.
and he does confide in Alfred when he needs to. You know what I mean? I want to see a scene of him and Alfred just sat on a step chatting about shit. You know what I mean? I want it to be like him. You know, he's bringing up Dick Grayson or Jason Todd or Damien, and I want him to be sat on a stoop, look at Alfred, be like, "What did you do? Because I'm dying here. Being a dad sucks." You know, and Alfred's like, "Yeah, man, it sucks." You know, and here's what I did. And, you know, I want to see a scene like that. I want to see.
Here's what I did. Look how you turned out. You fucking
Well,
running around fighting crime at night. For God's sake.
Exactly, but that also mirrors, you know, Bruce's kids. Bruce's kids are now fighting crime at night, so they obviously did the same thing. And it's kind of like at some point, Alfred had to make a choice, which was I am going to make it so that if he goes out there, he won't die, or I will do the best I can to make sure he doesn't die, and that he doesn't kill anybody else. And that is fascinating to me. You know what I mean? And that is how Batman should be treating his kids in comics and media.
True.
Is it should be like Batman's like, all right, if you go out there and kill someone, or if you die, that'll be bad. It'll be twice as bad if you die and kill someone. Because I don't want you, because I don't want it to happen to anybody else, like I did when I was a kid. So I'm going to teach you everything I know so that you don't do that. And that's the choice that Alfred had to make with me, and it's the choice that I have to make with you. You know, I find that part of the story, everyone just loves to get to the Red Hood. You know what I mean? Everyone just wants to get to the, you know, Batman tragic father figure character. You know, who can't communicate and can't. You know, he's always in conflict with his kids. And also, I find that there's a real problem with writers trying to surround Batman with killers. Almost as if you know that fans love the Punisher and they just want Batman to kill, but they can't because he can't kill. So how about we make it so that his son is a killer, all his loves, all his romantic interests are killers. You know, he's basically everybody he knows is Talia's a killer. His son, you know, Damien, is a trained killer, and it's basically just this attempt to try and then Red Hood is a killer. It's like, oh, so everyone who comes back is like. They all get to kill people around him, and we get that hit that we love of seeing people murder people.
Yeah.
And I always think it's like I'd rather see more stories about Batman training his children not to kill people.
Yeah.
You know, that's difficult. It's easy to kill someone. It's really, really hard not to kill someone.
Yeah.
And it's really impressive, and I would love to see that.
Yeah, I know what you mean, and that would be
long
him imparting his actual spirit and the core of his belief to them as well anyway. So like, yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, well, surely he had to say to them at one point, like, if you kill somebody, you're done. You know what I mean? Like, you're my responsibility. If you go out there and kill someone, I don't think that this is over, you know?
Yeah.
But instead, they always like to be like, you know, like he's this tough drill sergeant dad, you know? And I think, no, I think he has to, at some point, he has to have imposed those morals onto his children.
Yeah.
So that's my very long-winded answer to that question.
No, it's a beautiful answer.
Who's your favorite Batman character then?
Ooh, I think out of a lot of them, it's probably a toss-up between Jim and the Scarecrow.
Yes, love Scarecrow.
As a kid watching the animated series, the Scarecrow was just always my favorite villain outside of the Joker. Yeah. Like I always, everyone has a soft spot for the Joker.
The Joker's kind of my fifth favorite villain. You know, I see why he's the most popular. I get it, but you know, I put quite a few above him in terms of actual villain.
Yeah,
you know, in terms of actual someone who affects Bruce, you know.
Yeah, I think the thing that I really loved about Scarecrow growing up is like whenever the Scarecrow is in an episode, you know it's going to be like a kind of introspective, trippy, weird experience, and I think I just always enjoyed that element to his character that he's, and also I think it just scared me as a kid, like this idea of like him being able to bring out your innermost fears, and you don't even know what they are until they manifest and stuff like that. And I think, and also I just thought he looked cool as well. Scarecrows, I've always thought scarecrows were cool. I don't know why, just did. And Jim,
he's a great character because he.
Oh, go on. Sorry. Go
on. I like him as well because he's another one of those characters that I think people misconstrue. Because again, the Arkham games, they love like the more kind of serial killery versions of people. And I think he's another character where he kind of is just fascinating because what he wants isn't anything that's like particularly relatable. He doesn't just delight in killing people. He's not Victor Zsasz. He doesn't just want to see. He doesn't want, but he just likes scaring people. He's just fascinated by fear. He's a scientist. You know what I mean? There's something really interesting about him just being very pure. He's kind of pure of heart. You know, he's like, I just fucking love scaring people. Oh, it's my favorite thing. You know, and it's like, I think to try and add a deeper meaning on that is missing the point almost in a way. You know, like as you say, it's whenever he shows up, he is completely well adjusted. It's Bruce who has to go introspective, like you said. It's like if you go up against Scarecrow, your enemy is yourself, not him.
Yeah.
You know, and that's fascinating. Like he doesn't change. He doesn't have an arc, you know, Scarecrow.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Not that I remember very well, yeah.
Not really. No, he just shows up, does his thing, and then you have to battle yourself.
Yeah. I think that, like I say, I think that's what drew me to Scarecrow. And Jim is just because Jim's almost a bit like Alfred in a way, but he's like the Alfred if he could actually come on the streets with Batman kind of a thing. He's like the other father figure, and I don't know. I think just Jim just has that like proper. He's always looking out for Batman, but he's also kind of disapproving of Batman, and like it's like this love-hate relationship, but. It's really it's love, but he just cares about it.
Why I really loved Alfred Jim in the Batman. I actually really love that performance because I love the way he would say things like, "I don't even know who you are, man." You know, and he would call him man, and they'd be like, "I really want there to be a scene where like Robert Pattinson goes, calling me man," you know, and he's like, "Yeah, is that okay?" "Oh, I like it. Keep calling me that," you know. And then there's like the fact that he's there's a bit where halfway through the Batman where they're on the roof together, and he goes like, "I don't trust any of them. Do you?" About the cops, and Jim goes, "I only trust you," and it almost made me cry in the cinema because I'm like, he's only known him 2 years. So imagine there's this guy who you don't even know the name of. You don't even know his name. You've never seen him.
Never seen his face.
He's a vigilante, so he's on the opposite side of the law to you. But you trust. He's the only person you trust, and you've known him, less than 18 months.
I guess it's because he's the only one actively going against. Because he's the only one actively going and openly going against the corrupt mobsters who own the police, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, he's it's because he's honest.
Yeah,
Batman in his suit is just like, this is me. This is who I am. I'm a weirdo. I'm a weirdo in a bat suit. There's no ulterior motive. There's nothing. There's no like. I'm not managing you. I'm not handling you. You know. So in a way, it's like you look at Batman and you're like, I get it. I get what he is. You know, I know who he is. And it's like everyone else has like a facade. You know.
Yeah.
Love that.
I think as well. Another interesting thing with Jim is that when he looks at Batman, it's almost like he wishes he could do that. Like he hates the bureaucracy, he hates the red tape that he comes along with being a policeman that sometimes gets in the way of justice. And and he likes that Batman can do things, outside of the books, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And he wishes he had that power, but he knows that he can't do it. He has to be like the face, he has to be the one that's towing the line for the sake of the city in a different way, So yeah, I don't know. I quite like Jim for that reason.
Yeah, I really wish I'd done a Jim scene, but it would have. There was this moment where I was like, I could do a Jim scene, but it would be 2 more minutes, and the film wouldn't get released. And
you'd take a battering from your girlfriend.
Yeah, exactly. She was great. She was great in the end. She did the score. She's Claire Wicks.
That's your. Oh no way!
Yeah,
that's your partner. Holy! Tell her by the way. Love her music. I did use it in the review, and I
saw you did. I really appreciate it.
Because I just thought, how could I do this without this music? Because it's too good. So I was just like, mate, it sets the tone for the review, and I just thought,
it was a beautifully a beautiful synergy of like we needed each other. Like she was like she'd been composing for a few years, and I was like, well, I really want to make a short film. And I'd love it to have music, and I'm
Yeah.
sure you would love to score a short. And and she went from knowing nothing about Batman to kind of getting Batman, and like
Yeah.
understanding, and like it's like I think she managed to fit the score perfectly into, kind of it works as a companion piece to what came before, but it's also got its own little things. And
Yeah.
she made a theme for every character. There's like a Scarface theme and a
Yeah.
Two-Face theme, and they're just so good.
I listened to all of them. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the moment when Scarface gets killed by Wesker and Wesker is stood there, the theme is a higher version of the Scarface theme, like a sad violin version
Right.
of the Scarface theme. So it's like that you got the duality. It's just so cool. But no, we were, she was really supportive of the whole project, and I don't think I would have been able to do it without her. Really, like it's
No,
it was a very very lucky kind of partnership.
big
Because
respect
really,
to
it was
Claire.
just
Big respect.
for a long time. For a long time, the crew was really just me and her, and then my brother doing a voice, and a friend, Sylvie Nightingale doing a voice, who's a friend from college, and
Right.
Brian Vaughan, who's a friend of my brother's, doing Batman. And it's just kind of like, it really was just me and my girlfriend in lockdown, and her supporting my insane dream. So yeah, but
Well, it worked
grateful.
out.
Always be grateful for the people who support you.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
100%. Yeah.
The other ones, yeah, it's a wonderful thing.
Well,
But thanks so much for shouting her out in the review as well, because I wanted to get her flowers for the film, because it's so amazing. And you don't get a lot of fan films with like a really good score,
no.
often.
Or a proper original score. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. There'll be a lot of reused score or something that's very similar to another type of score.
Yeah, definitely. Or they'll just use royalty free or whatever. But yeah, no, I really liked it. I thought she captured the tension and the darkness really well, but she still brought in some of that kind of brass ensemble element. It was more subdued than the regular Batman animated series, which is very orchestral, you might say. But like she did it a bit more subdued than that. But I could tell that she was kind of bringing it in.
We wanted
a bit
of we wanted a touch of modernity. I think is what we wanted. A little to go with the kind of slightly contemporary themes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And this leads me to the last question then.
Please.
And it's the obvious question: are you going to be making another one, or are you going off onto different ventures, or what's the plan?
Okay, well, at the moment, I don't have time. I very fortunately am working on a really nice job, which is a film job.
Oh, sweet.
Working as a concept artist, so basically living the dream. And I can't talk about it because NDA.
Yeah, it's all.
But
yeah.
I feel very fortunate, but it means I'm basically working full time. And it took me 2 years to make Batman Broken Promise, and I was in lockdown the whole time, so I actually had free time. And the thing is, I would love to make another one. And I think if I did make another one, it would be kind of like we were talking about what Batman should be, which is another day in the life. It wouldn't be a sequel necessarily. It would be the same Batman, but it would be like another night.
Just another episode.
A different story.
Yeah.
It's another episode, and to the point where like I could make a few of them over my whole life. But they're not like, they don't have to be seen. It's not like, and it's not. I don't want that Comic-Con shit of like, when's the sequel for the next one, and give us the tease of who the villain is, and we need to know exactly what's happening and when it's going to happen.
Yeah, no.
It's like the beauty of Batman Broken Promise to me was that nobody knew it was coming, and like we dropped a trailer like a month before releasing it, and that got some people excited, and then we did a week away trailer and a day away trailer, and I swear to God, the YouTube channel didn't exist a week before the film was released.
Wow.
So it's not like I have like previous content. It's just, and I love that. I think that's what's so beautiful about it, is that it was kind of, it just came out of nowhere. It wasn't, I think the moment someone starts waiting for a Batman Broken Promise movie is the moment I start getting backlash, that'll be when someone is like, oh, this is the sequel? Oh my God, it's a bunch of woke bullshit. You know what I mean? So in a way, I think I definitely have like ideas. I definitely have characters that I'd love to explore. I have, like on Instagram, I do a lot of pictures of other villains and other characters,
Yeah, I was
and that
taking a
doesn't
look.
mean
Yeah,
that doesn't mean that they would be in a movie. It just means that I like to imagine who else lives in the world, if you know what I
yeah,
mean. And I have my own, Trumbleized take on each character.
sure.
And I think around the time the film was being released, about five other storylines popped into my head. But I think if I had to do it again, I would probably have to do like an Indiegogo or something for it,
Sure.
just because um, I'd have to justify taking that much time off work,
Yeah,
to do it.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, there could be a
although I
compromise.
came up with a genius idea. I came
Oh,
up with a genius idea for the different tiers. Like
mm,
you get like the different levels of donation.
yeah.
I would have it be like, okay, so the first tier would be, I draw you into the film. So if you give
Okay.
me this much money, you get to just be a Gothamite. You
Yeah.
give me this much money, Batman saves you. If you give
Uh,
me this much money, Batman beats the shit out of you.
yeah. That's
So,
what people
you know what I
want.
mean?
That's the big money right there.
Exactly. So like the top tier people would be like, in the face, like right in the face,
Yeah.
like do it in my face, like break my arm. And I think that's the kind of that's what I'd end up having to do. I think just in order to justify it. But I would love to. But I think I'll probably end up doing more animations that aren't even Batman. Like I might
Yeah.
just do something else. Who knows? Like I love animation and I love doing it. It's just such an effort.
Yeah. There could be a
But it's nice.
compromise in a comic book, maybe.
I'd love to. I even came up with a couple of ideas if I ever wanted to continue the Arnold Wesker Two-Face part. Like, but I realized I would only ever be able to do that as like a web comic or something because
It's not too
you
bad
can't
though, is
do a
it?
whole other animation. Yeah, yeah. And I talked to my brother about it because obviously he loves the characters as well, and he was like, "That works. Yeah, you could totally do that." So maybe one day. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
That'd be interesting.
A lot of people do. Web comics and people read them, don't they? Like,
Yeah.
it's definitely something that
They've
people
kind
be
of
into.
exploded in the past few years, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. One of the best ever Jason Todd moments is in a web comic. I think it was an official. It was the one on web something. Web. I can't remember what it was called, but it was the Bat Family Adventures,
Oh, not heard of
and
it.
it was. It was like doing the rounds on Twitter because there was a Jason Todd story in this. Essentially, it's kind of like a jokey. Imagine that you're just spending all your time at home with the Bat family. Like
Right.
it's all about the comedy of them living together.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay.
But then they managed to make an issue where Jason Todd starts having a panic attack, and the entire family supports him and talks him through his panic attack. And it's probably the best treatment of a character suffering from post-traumatic stress ever. And it's basically the best thing that could ever have happened to Jason Todd as a character. Like it made me feel like actually this is great. Like they should do this in the official comics
Mm.
as opposed to just making him, oh, it's the Red Hood and he goes around killing people and he's like, ugh, he and Bruce don't get on. And it's like, no, actually, have his dad say, I'm here for you, son, and whatever happens, like we're gonna make you feel safe and you're,
Yeah.
like that was, and I think it took kind of. I know that comic was in its own way slightly sanctioned. I don't think it's 100% fan, but I think whoever
Right.
wrote that issue was like, I'm gonna write this thing like I stole it. You know what I mean? I'm gonna do whatever the fuck I want with this. You know what? Everyone's gonna be nice to Jason for one episode, and I think that is like, yes, brother. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I want. I think that's the beauty of fan films, I think, as
Oh,
well, and
100%.
fan artwork is that we're unencumbered by the need to. In fact, if anything, that's another reason why I sometimes don't like the idea of doing another one, because I think the moment I'm doing it for people, I feel like it might all go wrong.
Yeah. No, 100%. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
It's
think
like,
it's
oh,
gotta
now I
come
might fail
from a place.
the second album, like,
Yeah.
oh god, like everyone's like, I'll release one, they'll be like, what, you mean the Joker's not in it? Fail, or
Yeah.
something like that, And it'll just be this kind of thing. It's just, maybe I'm being too paranoid, but like I think the beauty of a lot of fan-made stuff is it just comes out of nowhere and nobody asks for it, and that's what's so great about it. I
Yeah.
don't know if you, I mean,
No, I
as someone
agree.
who's a
I
fan
agree.
of
For me,
fan-made
I think it's
stuff,
also the passion as well, because like nobody asked you to do this. You just did it. You weren't commissioned. You weren't. There's no necessarily immediate gain for this. It's
Oh.
just a from the heart, And that's what I love about fan animated stuff. That's why I started this channel, is because I just love the fact that it comes from the heart, and
Yeah.
it's not sanitized by
Mm.
fucking corporations and all kinds of other
Yeah.
things, and studios
But
meddling.
I mean, yeah, yeah. It's not even trying to impress fans. You know,
Not
like it's not even.
necessarily,
It's not
no.
even really. It's not like there's two references to the animated series, but it's not like fan service. Like I think
No.
fan service is one of the worst things that happens in superhero movies.
Oh, it's terrible.
Like, and I say that as a fan.
Mm.
Like as a fan, I want less fan service.
Yeah, I want
You know?
I want stories that have
Please give me a
their
new
own
story
thing.
that I can love. Yeah,
Yeah.
please. You know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
don't
exactly.
retread old ground and give me some nostalgia bait or whatever. I want
Exactly.
something
Well,
new.
it's cynical. There's so much cynicism when it comes to corporate fan service. When it comes to like, oh, because you almost feel the executives being like, "You wanted this, right? This is what you wanted, right?
Yeah.
So we're cool, right?
Yeah.
You got it, right? That's you wanted the thing, so we
It
did
is
the thing,
literally like that.
right? You know." And it's like, no, no, I didn't want that. That's why I often quite like the superhero movies, like the Batman, that are a bit divisive. Some people hate it,
Mm.
Some people are like, oh, it's not what I wanted. It's like, so what? It did its thing. It had a backbone. It did what it wanted to do. I liked it.
Yeah,
I have
I
much
agree.
more respect for a project that actually has something to say and does it, and something that's trying really hard to impress me.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Anyway,
totally agree with that one. But yeah, I think we'll leave it off there then. But yeah, thank you again for coming on.
oh, thanks for asking me, man. It was really, really great.
No, I was honestly not sure if you were going to come on, but I'm so happy you did. It's been a great conversation. Hopefully it's not the same as all the others. I know you did a couple of other interviews, but I was trying to
That's
make it as
fine. No,
different as
no, it was good.
possible.
No, it was
Um,
definitely cool. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
but
I think, yeah, I think there was quite a lot of new ground covered actually. A lot of
good, good. That's what I was
a lot
trying
of
to find.
introspection. Yeah, a lot of psychological introspection, which I'm always a fan of. So I'm quite happy about
I
that.
do like to pick people's brains. It's
Yeah, yeah.
it's a curse, really. But
And the trip down memory lane as well is kind of new. It's kind of fun.
well, this is what I mean. It's like everyone's got a journey, everyone's got a story. What led you to this point, But okay, so yeah, I'll leave it there. Thanks again to everyone who's tuned in. I don't know if anyone's been in the chat and YouTube. I haven't, unfortunately, because of my setup. I can't actually see the YouTube chat, so I don't know if there was anyone in the chat. If there was, next time I do an interview, I'll try and figure out my setup so that I can see the YouTube chat. So if there's any questions from the audience, I'll bring them in as well.
It'd be really funny if you look at the chat and it's all just like alt right versus alt left, and
it's just a war going on. I'm just totally unprepared for.
A feeding frenzy.
I didn't want this. I didn't ask for this.
Everyone's blocked. The entire chat has been blocked.
But yeah, thanks again, and we'll leave it there. So good night, guys, and remember to like and subscribe, Fanimation, and like and subscribe Stephen Trumble as well. Although I'm sure if you're here, you probably already have. So yeah, thanks again, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks so much. Cheers.